So it's 6:30 already, but we're waiting just a minute to see if Councilmember Bowie arrives, and also our commissioner, housing commissioner as well, and see if we can get everybody here. So we'll stagger it just a minute or two. I've only received 2 pink cards, so if anybody's wishing to speak on an item or communications, please get a card into the city clerk. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to hand it straight over to Stephanie to start the Housing Authority meeting first.
Okay, Madam Clerk, can you please call roll?
Commissioner Beard? Here. Commissioner Beckles? Here. Commissioner Bowie?
Yeah.
Commissioner Jones?
Here.
Commissioner Kim Nguyen?
Here.
Commissioner O'Neill?
Here.
Vice Chair Tu-Ha Nguyen? Here. Chair Klopfenstein?
Here.
And Commissioner Solorio is absent.
So we will start with oral communication. I do not have any pink cards at this time, so we move on to consent items. 2A, receive and file the Housing Authority status report for February 2018, and 2B, receive and file minutes for the meeting held on February 27th, 2018. We can act on this simultaneously. Do I have a motion?
Move it.
Call for the vote.
Is it working? Motion received, 8 yes votes.
Up next, we have a public hearing, item 3A, adoption of the annual plan for fiscal year 2018 for the Garden Grove Housing Authority. And I think we have a staff report.
Good evening, Chairwoman and Commissioners. The item before you tonight is the 2018 annual plan for the Section 8 Housing Voucher Program. The plan is a comprehensive guide to the Housing Authority policies, operations, and strategies for meeting local housing needs and goals. The Housing Authority is required to submit this plan to the Department of Housing and Urban Development prior to April 17th. In 2017, the Housing Authority received a CMAP score of 100%. CMAP is a combination of self-audit and data submission to HUD that measures the performance of the Housing Authority. A score of 100% qualifies the Housing Authority as a high-performing agency. And as a high-performing agency, we are only required to complete a streamlined format of the annual plan. A resident advisory board comprised of 6 tenant participants of the Housing Choice Voucher Program have received the plan, and their comments are attached. The public hearing has been properly noticed on January 3rd and 10th. It is recommended that the Housing Authority Commission conduct the public hearing and adopt the 2018 annual plan. That concludes my report, and I'll be available for questions.
Thank you. So at this time, we would open it up for public comment. I do not have any pink cards.
Yes.
Is there anyone that would like to speak on this item this evening? Okay. Anyone, commissioners, anyone that would like to speak on this item? Okay. Yes.
Kudos to our department for doing such a fine job. Streamlining is just a recognition of all the efficient and effective work that the staff do, and it's much appreciated, and we admire you and appreciate you doing that.
Thank you.
All your work. Thanks.
Thank you.
Before we move on, I'd just like to make mention of an item within the report. It's B6. It talks a little bit about how we achieved a lease-up rate of 96% with a 99% utilization rate and maintained our high-performing rating, which we consistently achieve as designated by HUD with a MPAP score of 100% for the fiscal year of 2016-2017. So to echo what Councilmember Beard said, it's a job well done. Thank you so much.
I'll go ahead and move to approve adoption.
Second.
Plan.
Motion received, 8 yes votes.
Moving on to matters from Chair, Commissioners, and Director. Any comments, concerns? All right, well, we'll go ahead and adjourn. The next regular Housing Authority meeting will be held on Tuesday, April 24th at 5:30 here at the Community Meeting Center.
Thank you. We will call the Garden Grove City Council meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Councilmember O'Neill,
Here.
Councilmember Tuhawin,
Here.
Councilmember Bowie,
Yeah.
Councilmember Klopfenstein,
Here.
Councilmember Kim Nguyen,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Beard.
Here.
And Mayor Jones.
Here. Can I ask Kingsley Ofariki to do the invocation and Councilmember Kim Nguyen to lead us in the pledge?
Okay, Heavenly Father, we ask that you guide the hearts and minds of all who exercise the responsibility and the duty of civic leadership. To those who govern through the city council, grant the ability to listen carefully, reason thoroughly, speak clearly, and act with compassion. Give us the willingness to persevere in service for the common good. May the effect of the work done here this evening promote the welfare of all citizens of our dear Garden Grove. Amen.
Place your right hand over your heart and repeat after me. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to presentations. It's exciting to see we've got a very big crowd here tonight for the first one. So we'll go on to item 1A, which is a community spotlight.
It's a community spotlight in recognition of Master Officer Michael Ilhami, Master Officer Juan Delgado, Officer Luis Ramirez, Officer Matt Marchand, Reserve Officer Joseph Vargas, and Reserve Officer Daniel Edwards for going above and beyond the call of duty with life-saving efforts. And Chief Elgin is here to read the spotlight.
Good evening, Mayor Jones, members of council. It's a very exciting evening for me tonight. I'm very proud to be standing here to recognize 6 of your police officers who over the past year were involved in some pretty heroic life-saving efforts. There's actually 3 incidents that I'd like to speak of tonight, so I'm going to break them up that way. I'd like to bring them up one section at a time, read them, and then we can take photos and give the awards. What I'll be presenting tonight is the life-saving medals from the police department, and I believe there's something that I believe that you are going to present as well. So I'll get started with, can I have Officer Matt Marchand, Reserve Officer Joseph Vargas, and Reserve Officer Dan Edwards please step up. On February 17, 2017, Garden Grove police officers were dispatched to the 7-Eleven convenience store in the 12500 block of Brookhurst Street in reference to a stabbing that had just occurred. Officer Mart Machon, Reserve Officer Joseph Vargas, and Reserve Officer Dan Edwards arrived on scene within minutes of the call. As they arrived, they found a 19-year-old male on the ground with multiple stabbings and profuse bleeding. The officers began to treat the victim. They observed one of the wounds appeared to be a severe chest wound that may have collapsed the victim's lungs. Officers could see that the victim was having extreme difficulty breathing and was beginning to lose consciousness. Officers quickly began life-saving measures and applied pressure to other existing wounds. Officer Marchand used an occlusive chest bandage from his trauma kit and applied it to the victim's chest area. Once Officer Marchand placed the occlusive bandage to the victim's chest area, the victim no longer appeared to be in labored breathing. The victim regained consciousness and was able to speak to Officer Marchand. Officers kept the victim calm and had him focus on his breathing. The victim was even able to tell officers what had occurred that caused the assault. Garden Grove Fire Department personnel arrived and assumed treatment of the victim. Police supervisors spoke to the fire personnel, and it was determined that if it had not been for the immediate actions of these officers taking these life-saving measures, the victim would not have survived his injuries. It is for these heroic efforts that we recognized Officer Matt Marchand, Reserve Officer Joseph Vargas, and Reserve Officer Dan Edwards with the department's life-saving award. Congratulations, men.
Can I have everybody scooch in a little bit? Gonna do a couple shots. 1, 2, 3. And one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Good job, guys.
The hits keep on coming. Number 2. Master Officer Juan Delgado, Officer Luis Ramirez. On July 14, 2017, at approximately 1900 hours, Garden Grove police officers were dispatched to the 13500 block of Roxy Drive to assist the fire department with a 2-year-old child found floating in a pool. Master Officer Juan Delgado and Officer Luis Ramirez, assigned to the department's gang suppression unit, were in the area and heard the call being dispatched. Recognizing that they were close to the call, they immediately responded and were the first emergency personnel to arrive on scene. Officers found the lifeless body of a 2-year-old boy that had been removed from an in-ground hot tub, lying on the pool deck. Officers immediately began life-saving efforts with the child, placing him in a declined position and giving several back thrusts in order to clear his lungs. Officers found his lungs to be full of water and used these measures to evacuate his lungs. Officers still found the boy not to be breathing and to have no pulse. During this time, Officers Delgado and Ramirez began CPR on the child while having the presence of mind to move him to the front of the residence in order to expedite treatment by arriving paramedics. Officer Delgado and Ramirez continued CPR efforts with rescue breathing and chest compressions. Garden Grove Fire paramedics arrived on scene and were able to locate a faint pulse on the child and observed that the child began to slowly breathe on his own. The victim was transported to Chalk Hospital and was listed in critical condition. A Garden Grove PD supervisor later contacted the pediatric critical care unit physician at Chalk Hospital to check on the condition of the child and was able to receive great news. As the boy arrived at the hospital, he continued to have an erratic pulse and faint breathing. He was kept on a ventilator for 2 days and eventually gained the strength to have the ventilator removed and breathe on his own. On the 3rd day, the boy regained consciousness. Miraculously, the victim appeared to have no long-term effects from the incident, and within several days, the child was able to go home with his parents. The pediatric care nurse or physician told the Garden Grove Police Department that the actions of these first responders made the difference between life and death on this young boy. Officers Juan Delgado and Officer Luis Ramirez performed at the highest level in what anyone can consider to be one of the most stressful and critical situations in order to truly save a life. Their actions make them deserving of the department's life-saving award. Congratulations, man.
Couple shots. 1, 2, 3. And one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
And last, but certainly not least, Officer Michael Elhami. On September 15th, 2017, Master Officer Michael Elhami was working as a motor for the department's neighborhood traffic unit when he heard officers being dispatched to a report of a baby not breathing. Master Officer Elhami was nearby and quickly responded. Master Officer Elhami entered the residence, and an understandably hysterical mother quickly handed Master Officer Elhami a 5-day-old baby. Master Officer Elhami immediately assessed the infant and found it not to be breathing. Master Officer Elhami found the child to have a blocked airway and turned the infant over and administered several back blows, which cleared the fluid from the infant's airway. Upon turning the child back over, Master Officer Elhami could see the baby began to breathe again. Garden Grove fire personnel arrived on scene and began to monitor the infant and transported the baby to Chalk Hospital. Because of the quick actions of Master Officer Elhami, the baby was able to make a full recovery. A Garden Grove fire captain said due to the very young age and small lung capacity of the child, that if it were not for the efforts of Master Officer Elhami, the baby likely would have not survived. Because of Master Officer Elhami's quick response and calm management of a chaotic situation, a life was saved, and Master Officer Elhami is deserving in receiving the department's Life-Saving Medal Award. Thank you.
Couple shots. 1, 2, 3. And one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Gotta love how tight-knit our police department is. Look at the show of support that comes out for these guys tonight here, too. So congratulations to everybody.
Turn on the air conditioning.
Oh, can you speed up your step? Okay, we'll move on to item 1B, which is a presentation from the Orange County Fire Authority.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, that's certainly a nice way to start a council meeting out. That was very uplifting. I thought I'd make just a couple quick comments to introduce this subject to the general public and people watching a little bit about how we got to this point. This is going to be a presentation from the Orange County Fire Authority for providing fire service to the city of Garden Grove. All of you will know the background on this, but for people that are watching or listening in the audience, this process began, I think, last summer when we concluded fire negotiations with the Fire Association. And during the course of those negotiations, the Fire Association requested that we solicit a bid for fire service from the Orange County Fire Authority. City Council, all of you agreed with that, and later that fall, I think we began the process of getting in contact with the Fire Authority to request that they go through the process of preparing a bid for your consideration. They endeavored to begin that work. It's not a small amount of work. Probably shortly after the first of the year, I think they probably spent 2 to 3 months working on the proposal. It was a lot of work that went into it. We actually, the city administration, we made an office available for them in City Hall, and they spent lots of time out in our firehouses talking to our firefighters, to our fire command staff, really to all of the city departments, directors and their staff that have any connection with the fire department. And I will say that during the entire course of the time that we were working with them, most of our time was spent working with retired Assistant Fire Chief Mark Kramer and Battalion Chief Brad Phoenix, who worked extensively with the City of Garden Grove in trying to understand the nature of our operations, how we do business, so that they could present a proposal for you today. And so we wanted to schedule some time. I believe that the Orange County Fire Authority Board of Directors last week authorized their fire staff to make this presentation to you today. And so with that, I want to introduce to you Assistant Fire Chief Mike Schrader, who is going to be taking, I think, about 20 minutes or so to walk us through the fire service proposal. And of course, after that period of time, we'll have time for any and all questions that you have for the fire authority, for the city staff, for the fire chief. I know there's members of the Garden Grove Fire Association that are here that could be available for questions as well. So with that, I'll turn the dais over to Assistant Chief Schrader.
Thank you. Thank you, City Manager Stiles. Just for clarity, I'm going to just speak for just a minute or two, and then I'll turn it over to our Battalion Chief to run you through the proposal. First and foremost, thank you for having us here, Mayor and City Council. Before I just take a minute to introduce Chief Phoenix, I wanted to first introduce Acting Fire Chief Dave Anderson, and the entire command staff are here to support as well and answer any questions that you would have after the proposal. I'm excited to be before you this evening, really because I believe the two objectives, the two overarching objectives for which we set forth to accomplish in this proposal, I feel we are quite handily able to accomplish. And really those two objectives are, one, to ensure that we provide a proposal that is of great benefit to not only the city, but ultimately the citizens of Garden Grove. From one perspective as a fiscal benefit, and then also to meet and or exceed your levels of service currently that are provided. And then the second overarching objective really was to ensure that the fire authority wasn't harmed in any way by the regional deployment would suffer as a result of Garden Grove coming over. And when we looked at this holistically, as City Manager Stiles indicated, I'm happy to report that both those objectives were met. And we're going to bring a proposal to you this evening that I feel is quite comprehensive and also accomplishes those objectives. So to walk you through the nuts and bolts of the proposal, I'd like to introduce Strategic Services Battalion Chief Brad Phoenix, who's really the principal architect and project manager of this. So thank you for your time, and I'll turn it over to Chief Phoenix now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Schrader, Mayor Jones, council members. I just want to start off first by saying thank you to the city and fire staff. They have been extremely cooperative and helpful through the entire process, and I just wanted to make sure that you know that. Can we get the PowerPoint? Thank you. On September 22nd, Orange County Fire Authority received a formal request from the City of Garden Grove to develop a fire services proposal to present to the City of Garden Grove for fire services. On September 28th, our Board of Directors approved staff to move forward with the development of the proposal. And our first meeting with the City of Garden Grove staff was on October 17th. That was to get a groundwork on scope of work and expectancies for the proposal, and also to develop and open up lines of communication. As City Manager Stiles mentioned, on last Thursday, March 22nd, our board unanimously approved the fire service proposal to present to you tonight. The Orange County Fire Authority, not only are we a premier emergency response organization, we have a robust support and administration section, but we are fiscally strong also. We serve 23 demographically diverse communities, and we also serve unincorporated Orange County. We serve 1.18 million residents in just under 600 square miles. We have 72 stations that respond out of 9 battalions. The battalions respond to 7 geographical division chiefs. We also have 1 support chief of operations, division chief. We have approximately 1,500 personnel in our organization, 1,000 firefighters, 172 reserve firefighters, and just under 300 support staff. Quick map here to orient you to as how Garden Grove is positioned to Orange County Fire Authority service areas, and you can see Garden Grove highlighted in blue as it relates to our service jurisdictions. I'll have a map that zooms in a little more on Garden Grove a little later, but I just want to give you the bigger picture view of where we are and how Garden Grove is oriented to our service area. You can see all of the Orange County Fire Authority stations also in the with the red flags on them. Orange County Fire Authority is governed by a board of directors, which is made up of 1 council member from each of our cities, and we have 2 members from the Orange County Board of Supervisors representing the unincorporated areas of Orange County. Orange County Fire Authority is also governed by an executive committee, budget and finance committee, human resources committee, and a city manager's technical advisory committee and city manager's budget and finance committee. And both of those committees advise executive staff prior to issues being submitted to the board and the fire chief. There are 2 types of membership within the Orange County Fire Authority: structural fire fund members and cash contract cities. There are 16 members in the structural fire fund. That would be 15 cities and unincorporated Orange County for a total of 16. The fire protection is funded through property taxes that go directly to the OCFA. There are 8 cash contract cities. These are represented by cities that at one time had a fire department, a municipal fire department, and they have contracted services for fire with Orange County Fire Authority. And our contract costs are based on engine and truck company costs, operation costs for Orange County Fire Authority. Benefits to Garden Grove, if the proposal was accepted, there would be, the first benefit would be reduced cost for fire service within the city. We'd increase paramedic response capabilities by 133%, and I'll go into a little more detail on that a little bit later. All apparatus assigned to the city would be staffed with 4 personnel. And of course, Garden Grove would have access to all of our emergency resources, whether it be hazmat, urban search and rescue, helicopters, and also our non-emergency resources, community education, EMS, nurse educator, community risk reduction, human resources, purchasing, all of our administrative sections. Benefits to OCFA, it would be mutually beneficial if Garden Grove were to accept the contract. We would strengthen our organization, enhance our regional services, and have increased emergency response capabilities. And you'll see on the next slide, Garden Grove borders 6 Orange County Fire Authority cities that we serve currently. Garden Grove, I know you're very familiar with the borders of Garden Grove, but the city's highlighted in yellow. And you can see that there are a lot of recesses and fingers that touch into current Orange County Fire Authority service areas. And I'll explain at the end of the slide why that's important to us. But starting from 12 o'clock and going counterclockwise, you'll see the city of Stanton, which is an Orange County Fire Authority city, the city of Cypress, Los Alamitos, Seal Beach. Garden Grove shares a long contiguous border with Westminster and Santa Ana. You can see our current fire stations that are within the region of Garden Grove. They're labeled in red, with the exception of one, which is Station 64, right in the middle of Westminster, which has a blue insignia around it. That just signifies our headquarters, but that is also a station that we respond out of. You can see those as compared to Garden Grove, where your stations are in white. The reason that's important to us is the shape of Garden Grove and where it lies within Orange County Fire Authority jurisdiction lends itself perfectly for regional fire service and sharing of resources across borders. Garden Grove is surrounded 75% by Orange County Fire Authority jurisdiction. I want to talk to you a little bit about the costs of the proposal, and I want to draw your attention to fiscal year 2018-19, which would be the first year of the contract. As you can see, our contract price is just under $22.6 million compared to the 2018-19 fiscal budget for Garden Grove Fire Department, which is at $25.1 million. This represents a savings of over $2.5 million for the first year. As you can see in the subsequent fiscal years going left to right, you can see the contract service price on the top row from Orange County Fire as it compares to the Garden Grove Fire Department budget in the third row. Those estimates were calculated by using 4.5% increase for Orange County Fire Authority contract, which is the absolute maximum that a city, cash contract city can be raised. This is versus the much more modest increases on row 4, which is the projections that we receive from Garden Grove going for the next 3 fiscal years beyond 2018-19. The reason we compared our maximum to what the estimates that we received from Garden Grove is to give Garden Grove the absolute worst case scenario for planning purposes. So if there are any surprises with the contract price, it's to the positive. Even with those figures calculated at that rate, the first 4 years represent an estimate of over $8.5 million. The last item regarding costs that I'd like to cover with you in the presentation is startup costs. Startup costs are essentially costs that are required to bring Garden Grove Fire Department compatible with Orange County Fire Authority on day one. And they're costs that are associated with apparatus, equipment, and facilities. You can see that the total startup costs are $1.1 million. That, of course, can be amortized to prevent a one lump sum payment. The $1.1 million is, I want to compare that to the last city that we were provided a proposal for. That was City of Santa Ana. In 2011, 2012, when we were going through that process, their startup costs were $1.3 million. So 7 years later, we did $200,000 better for the City of Garden Grove. I know one thing that might be on your minds and or a concern is the ongoing costs of Orange County Fire Authority versus the projections and when could the city possibly stop realizing savings. The Orange County Fire Authority numbers, well, both Garden Grove and Orange County Fire Authority, we factored in the last 10 years to get an average. I figured that was the best way to give an accurate projection of the past so we can maybe project going forward. But and the last 10 years of contract increases to our cities was at 2.92%, well below our 4.5% maximum. The 2.2% were budget numbers from the City of Garden Grove, and I just want to point out that Within 3 of those 10 years of that 2.2%, Garden Grove reflected a negative budget projection. With all those factors in, it would still take till the fiscal year 2033-34 into fiscal year 34-35 before savings would be realized at these projected cost estimates. Within that time frame, the City of Garden Grove will have saved over $23 million. Before I discuss deployment, I just want to reorient you, because I'm sure you're aware, but make it more familiar to you as far as the difference between a paramedic assessment unit and a paramedic engine. A paramedic assessment unit, as it is current within Orange County Fire Authority and the City of Garden Grove, is a 3-person unit staffed with 1 paramedic. Orange County EMSA requires 2 paramedics on an ALS emergency medical services call. Paramedic engine is staffed with 4 personnel, being 2 with 2 of that personnel being paramedic qualified. What that does is it reduces impact to neighboring stations, where if a paramedic assessment unit were responding, it would require response from 2 apparatus, taking 2 units out of service for 1 call. If the paramedic engine or paramedic truck is staffed with 4 personnel, it requires only 1 response. Also, it's more efficient and allows for quicker time compliance as it pertains to OSHA 2 in, 2 out. Now I want to discuss the deployment that we're offering within our proposal. You'll see that there are 2 rows. The first one is current Garden Grove Fire Department deployment compared to what we are proposing from Orange County Fire Authority. And you'll see that on the far right, both plans have, our proposal compared to the City of Garden Grove has 29 personnel on duty, as they do today. You'll see the biggest difference is at Station 1, where we are, where currently there are 4 apparatus responding out of Station 1, as compared to the 2 that we have for Orange County Fire Authority proposal. Within the proposal, there will be the redeployment of 4 personnel from Station 1 to the 4 paramedic assessment units that are highlighted in yellow, and they will be converted into paramedic engines, as you can see circled at the bottom. This allows, as I stated, for more efficient response to fires and EMS calls. There is a piece of apparatus currently within the Orange County Fire Authority Station 64 that would be moved within this proposal. Truck 64 out of Station 64 would be moved 1.5 miles up the road, just across the border of Westminster into Garden Grove, and respond out of Station 5 as a paramedic truck. This would, of course, allow for more effective fire force and response capabilities within Garden Grove, but also our partner, City of Stanton, while maintaining our time benchmarks for truck coverage out of Station 64 into the areas that Truck 64 serves in Westminster. Briefly, I want to discuss a deployment report that was that the Fire Chief of Garden Grove developed at the request of City Council in 2016, and it concentrated on ALS responses, but it identified areas of improvement within the fire department, being a lot of it was around the redeployment of 3-person PAUs to 4-person paramedic engines, adding a truck to the west side of the city. And this was to be implemented over 3 years within 3 phases at a cost of $2 million. If Orange County Fire Authority proposal is accepted by the City of Garden Grove, we will be able to meet or exceed all of the recommended improvements that were within that report. If you factor in the $2 million savings into the savings that we already discussed, the savings would be just under $17 million. This is just a real quick slide. The first 3 green stations are where currently Garden Grove has paramedic capabilities, and this is what it would look like within the proposal. If the proposal were accepted, there would be a minimum 120-day timeline for the transition of Garden Grove Fire Department personnel. All Garden Grove Fire Department sworn employees would transition to the Orange County Fire Authority, conditional to meeting the pre-hire requirements, which is as a medical and a records check. Non-sworn personnel would be hired. Fire Department non-sworn personnel would be hired based on vacancies and Orange County Fire Authority needs. The fire stations would still be the responsibility and ownership of the City of Garden Grove. The potential expenses associated to the fire stations would be divided into three possible expenses. The first one is the startup costs, which I spoke about earlier. That's would be part of the agreement, and that's to make, like I said, Garden Grove fire stations compatible with Orange County Fire Authority. There's a capital improvement project potential, which is costs over $15,000 to fire stations. And then there's a yearly maintenance where every cash contract city with Orange County Fire Authority submits $15,000 for annual maintenance to their fire stations. That's consistent with the JPA agreement. It is not singular to the City of Garden Grove, and that is already included in the contract price, so it is not in addition to what we've spoken to. The proposal does require the transition of 10 pieces of apparatus within the Garden Grove Fire Department fleet, 6 Type 1 engines, 5 to be serving the City of Garden Grove with 1 potential reserve engine, 1 truck company which will be replaced by an Orange County Fire Authority truck, and 3 smaller vehicles, the Air Light Utility that is being developed for Garden Grove right now, a battalion response vehicle, and a utility vehicle. The City of Garden Grove does have options with the fire department fleet that would not be taken over to Orange County Fire Authority. You may, of course, keep the vehicles, sell them on your own, or we would offer to sell them for you at an auction, and of course, all the proceeds going back to the City of Garden Grove. That concludes my presentation on the proposal. I am certainly here to answer any questions that you may have, and I anticipate you may have a few.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Colleagues, any questions?
First, I think it probably would be a good idea to set some ground rule for the question and answer. And I think it's certainly this is not designed to be where we are delve into detailed question and answer,
yes,
but very much general question. So I think it would be helpful for us if the mayor, if we may, set up certain ground rule before we ask a question.
Okay. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on sort of what the dividing lines on that would be, or what
Well,
kind of goals you're envisioning?
yeah, I think it's.
I get where you're going. There's still a lot of internal research we need to do. There's
Correct,
a lot of due diligence
correct.
we need to do on our end, and this
Exactly.
is probably not the proper format in a presentation thing. But if there's any high-level questions, I think.
Yeah,
clarification
I
of
think it's.
questions regarding the bid, how things work.
Yes, how things works, and perhaps at a very, very high level, how we, move forward to work with OCFA in terms of understanding the proposal, and also to understand what the impact would be to some other issue that we are considering later this evening. Those kind of things, rather than go into detail. What does it mean by making the station in line with with OCFA fire station. Those kind are 2 technical questions that I think we can save to a later day. And obviously the staff is going through to analyzing the proposal, and the council will do so, and also the public may also want to have some question. And if we can collect answer those questions and ask us at a time, I think that would be better.
Okay. And we do have a couple public comment cards that will come up under oral after this whole segment is over,
Sure.
so we'll hear from some of our residents at that time. Okay, cool. Just with, I guess, do you want to
Okay.
go ahead and start then?
Sure. The question I have for you is, I don't know if you are familiar with the early retirement plan that we are considering, the City of Garden Grove is considering, and that may affect about up to 10 Garden Grove firefighters that may be qualified for it. And the question that we have would be, because we do not yet know whether we are going to OCFA or not, that will take some time. And we need to decide on the early retirement plan right now. How do you think your proposal will play out in that context?
The proposal that we have developed is not within the scope of the Garden Grove Fire Department or City of Garden Grove early retirement plan. It doesn't cover that at all. It's nothing that's related.
Okay. So in other words, let me give you some scenarios. If we decide to go with OCFA, let's say we decide to go that route, and let's say 4 of the 10 qualified firefighters 4 of the 10 firefighters that qualify for early retirement decide to take that, that option. When we go to, and let's say they decide that in, let's say in August. When we go to, let's say for theoretical purposes, let's say we decided and then we go to transfer to OCFA, let's say in November. Now, OCFA will may hire junior people. The saving from that, will that be passed through to the city or will it not?
It would not. We would not be able to assist with any early retirement payments to the city of Garden Grove. Does that answer your question?
I think
I don't think that's. I think I know what you're getting at, but I think it's disconnected. I think that the.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the concept is that if some of our firemen were offered and accepted early retirements, at obviously a cost to the city, that from the OCFA side of things, that would be 4 or 5 or 6 less of our senior, most expensive types of firemen that you wouldn't have to absorb at OCFA, and that theoretically there should be some cost savings or a reduction attached to that. That's the concept. Not that OCFA would assist with retirement, early retirement benefits, but rather just there would be 4 or 5 or 6 firemen that you wouldn't have to take that have been around for 28 or 30 years and that are at the highest end of the pay scale.
I think I understand. I'm Lori Zeller, Assistant Chief of Business Services with OCFA, so I handle our budget and all financial matters for the Fire Authority. So basically, the contract price that's proposed to you for us to serve the city of Garden Grove is based on the daily personnel that we'd be providing to the city, regardless of the length of tenure of the employee filling any individual seat. It's based on our salary scale, our retirement system. It assumes no pension liability, so they all start fresh with OCFA as far as pension purposes. The city remains responsible for past pension liabilities. So whether it's a brand new employee filling the seat for one of the 29 daily personnel or a very tenured employee from Garden Grove filling the seat, the price to the city is the same. If there becomes a vacancy, we're going to fill that vacancy with one of our employees. So every seat will be filled, and that's what you would be paying for. So no differential, no savings from somebody taking your early retirement incentive because it doesn't assume that. Does that answer the question?
Just intuitively, it doesn't make sense.
So you're paying for 29 positions to be filled every day, and we're going to make sure that happens, regardless of the individual in the seat. So if someone retires, we're going to have somebody else in that seat, and that's what you're paying for.
Now,
we're not going to leave it vacant.
Okay, so your current proposal, let's say whatever the price that is, is it based on the level of senior firefighter or junior firefighter that we have now, or it's not?
It's based on the average salary for our existing employees, spread across all length of service tenure. Brand new firefighter, a very well tenured.
I see. So it's not reflected on how many senior firefighters we have or how many junior firefighters we have. It's just based on your own thing. So whether we replace them or not, it's not applicable to this proposal.
That's
I got
correct.
it.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kimley.
So I have a couple of questions, and if they start to get too technical, I can rescind the question, but because we have a plethora of you here, I would like to take this opportunity to ask the questions that I have based on the proposal. First, I'd like to thank OCFA for indulging me and allowing me to go on a ride-along a few weeks ago. I had a really great experience kind of getting to know how your system works and seeing for myself some of your stations, especially the ones that would be affecting or working more closely with Garden Grove. And also, in the proposal, I saw that if we were to go to OCFA, there would be some efforts to work quickly with UCI in order to get those medical physicals turned around quicker because we do have a lot of sworn firefighters, so I appreciate that effort. One of the questions that I have kind of pertains to what Councilmember Fatbowie was asking, not necessarily to retirement, but how they're going to be transitioning over. There may or may not be demotions. Did we kind of look at if there would be any, how many would there be, and how the seniority works? You kind of answered that just now. For our firefighters who have been here or have just started, how would that work as far as them moving up positions? And tying into that, the sick bank and the vacation accrual, it says that that would fall upon us still, so maybe some clarity on those aspects around our current staffing.
I'll answer it to the best of my capabilities. Of course, a proposal hasn't been accepted, and there are negotiations that go along with these proposals. As far as transitioning employees in rank, historically, the Orange County Fire Authority has only transitioned the amount of employees within that rank that go with the contract that we are offering the city. An opportunity may be available to allow more Garden Grove Fire Department employees to transition over to Orange County Fire Authority if an agreement can be reached. I don't want to speculate any further than that because a contract hasn't been signed and negotiations haven't been completed. To answer your vacation and sick leave question, the Orange County Fire Authority cannot give unaccrued leave time to new employees, and Garden Grove Fire Department employees would be coming over as new employees. An opportunity exists, and of course, I don't want to get too far into detail because it's all negotiable and nothing has been done yet. But in the past, cities have reached an agreement with their current firefighters to allow them to bring over a percentage of leave time, and that's, like I said, it's all negotiable. I can't get too far into it, but if that were to be the case with the City of Garden Grove, the City of Garden Grove would still be responsible for that leave time.
And then the other question I had was, so the cost to upgrade our stations to meet your standards, that cost would also fall upon us if it exceeded a certain amount that was listed in the proposal, correct?
The capital improvement projects are projects over $15,000, and there is the possibility that there are some that exist in the Garden Grove fire stations, but that is not part of the startup costs. The startup costs are a one-time cost to bring the facilities up to compatibility with Orange County Fire Authority standards, or just Orange County Fire Authority fire stations.
And my last question, I promise.
You can ask as many as you want.
Don't say that. So a council member can serve on one committee on OCFA. We are granted that one position, and the others are by appointment or by position, I think. So if you could clarify what that means, so I know that Scott would also get a seat at one of the committees, but the others were.
Yes, there were 6 committees that were on the slide. Every city does get the one board of director, which is represented by a council member. There is also the city manager's technical advisory committee, where every city manager is invited to join. And the other committees are by appointment.
Thank you. Colleagues?
I don't have any specific questions, but I want to thank you for the proposal. Very professionally done. Well done. I think for us, it's a broad discussion right now because we're all digesting this. You know, we've been working on it for a while. We knew you were going to propose this, but we're bringing it to the community right now, so we've got to absorb all this.
Okay.
I think regardless of the contract and all the specifics, that could be worked out. For us, though, in Garden Grove, it's a monumental shift, you know, from having this 100-year-old fire department that people are so attached to. But like you said, you know, with the level of service maybe being increased and the budget savings, you know, we have to look at all those. But I think for us, we want to get a reaction from our community and their involvement in this process as we go forward. So I just wanted to say that.
I understand.
So thank you.
I transitioned from the city of Santa Ana that had a 125-year-old department.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other comments or questions?
If I may quickly?
Sure.
Sure. Station 6, it's in District 5, which is my district.
Yes.
It's the new station that's being built.
Right.
I would just curious as to your decision-making on bringing in a PME versus the PAU. Obviously, we know we have the hotel district that sits kind of at the doorstep of that station. Obviously, the tourism industry in the summer and in the winter months, it obviously adds quite a bit to our city. And just some thoughts on your decision-making and the process you went through to decide why and what is needed for that station.
And I can answer that question as a PAU versus a PME, and it's to increase advanced life support response and get paramedics on scene quicker to every station jurisdiction within the city of Garden Grove. You mentioned the high-rise. Did you mean a paramedic truck, or were you referring to the PAU?
I am curious about a truck and if that would be needed at some point down the road or why that wasn't part of the plan currently.
It was because of our the deployment, the strategic deployment of resources. With a truck at Station 1 and a truck at Station 5, they are able to meet the standards needed for truck response to more areas.
Okay, thank you.
Just make a comment. Just thank you for present the proposal to us. I think today just very basic information. I think many of us gonna go back and look at pro and con and what benefit the city the most, as well as the staff transitions. I think that's the most important thing that we concern. Especially, we do have a senior, a lot of staff that at the level of senior, and then we want to make sure that they do have the benefit coming out.
Okay.
So thank you.
And we will assist in any way needed.
Yeah,
with the
just
information.
one quick, real quick question, if I may turn the attention to page number 14 on the presentation.
Okay.
On that page, on the first row is the Garden Grove current deployment, and the second row is the OCFA. And I understand that you mentioned PAU had 3 members and PME had 4.
Correct.
Now, so how come the number of daily staffing is 29? Wouldn't that be because we have 4 PAU and you are proposing the PME to replace the PAU? So shouldn't that be 33 as opposed to 29, the same as Garden Grove?
There would be the decommissioning of 2 of the units that are responding out of Station 1 at this time. There are 8 members, 9 if you count the battalion chief, responding out of Garden Grove Station 1 right now. So the redeployment of those personnel to the PAU stations would equal 29 and 29. There would still be 4 people responding out of Station 4 on the paramedic truck, and then those 4 other members that were on the paramedic van and the engine would be dispersed to the other 4 stations. There are 3 on the truck, so the paramedic van would be 1 to make 4, and then you have 4 other individuals, and those would be the positions moved out. So there is 29 and 29 on duty.
Okay.
Thank you. Any, Mayor Pro Tem Beard?
Thanks for being here, Chief. Question relates to their contracted cities, 8 contracted cities are cash,
Yes.
call them cash
Yes.
contract. The other 16 are what, long-established cities that started, but did not have their own departments. Basically, we would be, if we went over to OCFA, we'd be one of the contract cities. And so what's the term or duration of a contract typically for a city?
The joint powers agreement is a 20-year agreement, and on the 10th year of every agreement, which was the 0 numbered years, the 2020, 2030, member cities are afforded the opportunity to leave the fire authority if they wish to. I can proudly say that no member city has ever left the organization, but if they did choose to, they would declare on the number 8 year at the end of the fiscal year prior to that 10-year mark. So they would have the option every 10 years, and years ending in 8 at the end of June, they'd have to declare by.
Okay, good, that helps. Related to equipment and stations and all that, so let me understand this. So if we transfer over our equipment to you, you use that equipment, it becomes OCFA equipment, correct?
Yes.
So, and you handle all the
With the
expenses?
exception of the fire stations, yes.
Fire stations, and we handle all the costs associated with the fire stations? We maintain and operate those still as a city? I want to be clear on what we're paying for.
Capital improvement projects would still be the responsibility of the city of Garden Grove.
Okay, so a fire station needs improvements, it needs ADA upgrades, it needs air conditioning systems, whatever that is, we still pay for that, we maintain.
Yes,
that
now
building.
there is a $15,000 or fund that goes towards every fire station, and we use that for the maintenance, small repairs. So every repair, every maintenance, every item would not come before the city of Garden Grove, but the major capital improvement projects would be the responsibility.
And the fire equipment itself, is there a reserve, an account, internal service fund that pays for that, for the improvements and the changing out? You know, it ends its life cycle of a piece of equipment, be it a truck or an engine?
Yeah, so you're talking about the apparatus?
Yes.
Yes, that is, within the contract, there is a vehicle replacement fee. That's consistent with every contract city that we serve, and that covers the projected costs that would be incurred by the Orange County Fire Authority to replace the apparatus responding within your city. So it is included in the contract price.
Okay, so the question related just to finance real quick is, this is all the expenses to the city, but right now we may be offering some services at no fees to businesses, as an example, for the inspection. Yours, and this is inclusive of those, carrying on those fees, or do you have fees separate from this report?
We do have separate fees, but I'm going to allow our Fire Marshal, Lori Smith, to speak to that question because she can answer it in much more detail than I am able to.
I just want to cover all the costs, some of the costs that may be, we're looking at this proposal, but there may be additional factors that we'll have to review as a city.
Yes, sir.
On
Yes, sir,
fees that you charge that we don't as a city.
Absolutely. I completely understand. I, too, was a Santa Ana transplant, and so we had to answer a lot of these same questions, so I'm very familiar with them. So at the pleasure of our board, we are a complete cost recovery unit. So our community risk reduction is based on 100% cost recovery. Now, that isn't to say that every service that we provide to the city we charge for. There's a product, and for that product, there's a fee. For those particular efforts that we make with your code enforcement, or that we make with some of your development, that we make with your parks and rec, those sorts of things, we don't charge for those. We don't charge residences anything. We have no jurisdiction in your private home. So your citizenry would not be paying any permit fees or any of that sort of thing. It mostly falls on the backs of your developers for plan review fees and inspection fees, and then the other are your local business operational fees. So we've encouraged Mr. Dent and their team over there, building official, to take a very close look at them. If they have any questions, let us know. We'll be happy to work through the details.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, good. Thank you so much for the presentation and for staying around to field all the questions. I'm sure we'll have a lot of continuing dialogue after we get a little deeper into this internally. Did you want to say something, Scott?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I don't know if we were concluding right now on this particular topic, but if we are, what I wanted to share with the city council is that, so they've been working very diligently on their proposal for several weeks now. And so as we've always said, you know, I think a lot of their hard work is done, and ours is probably just beginning a little bit. So we will be, as some of the council members have indicated, we'll be doing our internal staff analysis that's going to be necessary to bring back to you, to give you a full picture from the city staff about, you know, what this all means. We want to make sure that we're looking at it from every department's perspective, so you really get a full picture. What's interesting about this process, when you get into it, and as someone who's never gone through this process before, myself, what you learn really rapidly is that your fire department has its tentacles and is connected with a lot of the departments in the city. So you have, we've assembled an internal team that's going to look at every aspect about how this might affect every single one of our departments. So as the Assistant Chief mentioned, David Dent and our inspectors in Lisa Kim's shop will be a part of our internal team looking at this, as well as looking at the fees. And we have of civilians in the fire department that do our fire inspections, and how will that be done? And most critical to this council, with the importance that we're trying to place on driving economic development, how does OCFA, would they interact with us in terms of plan review, plan check, making sure we're all working really closely together, driving development, making sure it happens quickly, and all of that. So I think a lot of the discussions we've had about negotiations and stuff like that, we'll be able to do that down the road. Charles Khalil will be on our team from an IT standpoint, a lot of just firewalls and how does our software interact with each other. These are things that I'm sure OCFA has thought a lot about, and they've gone through this process before, but we in Garden Grove haven't, so we need to understand exactly what that means. Laura Stover in our HR department, she may have some savings because she's not going to have to recruit firefighters anymore. So that may be a case where there's actually some savings to the city that maybe they haven't actually calculated for us, but we know that there could be some benefit to us that they're not even thinking about. So I think there's probably some costs that we have that they're not thinking about. There might even be some savings that we have that they're not thinking about. Certainly Phil Carter is going to be a part of our team. Phil runs our fleet management division, and so how does this impact our fleet operations? We have one civilian that works on our fire trucks. We've had some conversations with the OCFA about how they handle civilian positions, and trying to place people if spots are available. We'll have to have more discussions with them. I know there's non-sworn personnel in the fire department who have come to me and they've said, well, what happens to me? Am I out of a job? Am I unemployed? Is the city going to find me a job? Is OCFA going to take me? There's not a lot of those positions. There's a small number, but those are things that we just need to think about as a city and think about the well-being of all of our employees. The police chief, obviously, Todd Elgin will be on our committee. Obviously, our police department, we've heard about the bravery, acts of bravery, and in all of those cases, our police officers work directly with our firefighters in responding to those situations. So we're going to want to get the police department's perspective on how any of this might affect them. And then just two other people, Janet Palaio in Parks and Recreation. They have a lot of special events that we have throughout the year with our community. How does OCFA work with our community on managing special events, that sort of thing. And then finally, I've designated Ann Eifert, our budget manager, to help me pull together the work of all of these departments. So we're going to be getting together. Each department will need to be thinking about how this impacts them individually, trying to identify all the questions, and then go from there. So that'll be the process that we will be going down to think of. I will mention I've reached out to the Fire Association President, Bill Strom, and I know Bill and I have already talked, and we'll have a number of conversations. I haven't had a chance to really talk to the association too much about what they think about this proposal. Do they have, I'm assuming they're going to have lots of questions from their standpoint about what we need to be thinking about. And then finally, the last thing I wanted to mention, it was mentioned somebody, I think Councilman Beard might have mentioned community engagement, involvement. So what we need to be looking to the City Council for is your guidance on what, while we'll be doing our work internally as administrative staff looking to this, we'll be looking to you a little bit for any thoughts or ideas you have for any community engagement that you want related to this effort. The one thing I do want to mention, and Chief, I think when you submit the proposal to us, I think what you mentioned to me is that the proposal is generally good for 6 months. There's probably a little flexibility around that, but not much. So I don't necessarily believe that it will need to take 6 months, but that comes along with their proposal, I think. And so this is a big deal. It's important to our community. I've been going out to a lot of the fire stations, talking to all of our firefighters about this, trying to get some perspective from them. The chief and I have both been going out, having a lot of conversations. I've been getting a lot of good feedback from our firefighters, concerns, interests, thoughts, suggestions that they have. So it's been very helpful for me from that standpoint. So with that, those would conclude my remarks.
Thank you, Scott.
And I would just, you are correct in that the previous proposals the duration was good for a period of 6 months. We're giving Garden Grove till the end of the fiscal year 18-19.
Great. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, with that, takes us to oral communications. I do have a handful of cards at this point. I'm going to start out with a couple that are maybe relevant to the presentation we just heard by the comments on the cards in terms of what they're looking to speak on. So, John Holm.
And while waiting for that, could I ask the Madam Clerk to have someone adjusting the air condition? It's a little bit too cold right down our face.
Thank you, Pat.
I was
Good evening. My name is John Holm. My wife and I have been residents of Garden Grove for 39 years. I'm a systems integrator by trade. And first, I want to thank Tom for October 2017, when we had the vigil for the Las Vegas shootings. The fire department came out, and we were very proud. So, thank you. First thing I'd like to point out, in the previous speech, there was one conspicuously absent item, and it relates to Mrs. O'Leary's cow. None of you know about that. Every fireman in the room knows all about it. Mrs. O'Leary's cow kicked over the lantern fell down, burned up her barn, and burned down the city of Chicago. Since then, the fire department has a profound impact on all the buildings in the United States. And key among that equation is the inspection that takes place. It was missing from the report. The most important thing that the fire department can do is prevent a fire. And the way they do it is through inspection. I mentioned that I'm a systems integrator, and years ago, about a dozen years ago, I had an opportunity to work with Orange County Fire Authority. And I'm glad they're here so I can vent my spleen on them. When I went down there on Jamboree, they have a beautiful facility. It's like a Taj Mahal. Looks great. I walked in, everybody was dressed in white pleats. They looked sharp, no calluses, no dirty hands. They were clean people. I was very pleased to see that. They gave us an ombudsman. I never heard of that. I heard of it in college. You don't know who an ombudsman is. Well, they said, if you have any problem, you'll go see the ombudsman. Then they gave us an inspector. And they came out, this was it's now called Pfizer, but it was a tenant improvement. It was a $10 million package. We were under a lot of pressure. And they gave us an inspector that was remiss in their education. And it caused us real fits. We had to go back and say, hey, look, we're behind schedule. You've knocked us out 4 weeks. We can't get the project on time, so where's our ombudsman? The ombudsman left. Then we went to plan check. And where's the plan check? Well, they're on vacation. And they got back they're in training. Took 4 weeks just to submit the plans. Now, this doesn't seem like anything to the city. You see the gray hair? Right here. Thank you. All right. Then, after we got into it, the inspector started canceling appointments. Now, when you're running a construction job, you have to set up your trades. You have to bring out your millwrights, your plumbers, your electricians, your HVAC people, and you got to pay these guys to be there and wait for the inspector to come out and say, okay, this is good, thank you. They didn't do it. The last day of the job, just before we opened, I had to go down, and I don't recognize any faces, but I had to make a real jerk of myself, which is something I do very often, and just said, you have to come out. You're scheduled. We're all signed off. We're permitted. We have 10 trucks ready to load the building up. We're going to lose $4 million if we don't make it by this weekend. And fortunately, it came out. So my point is that the Orange County Fire Authority is a great organization, and they have very well-dressed people. but systemically, they say one thing and do another. So I've been waiting to say that to you for 10 years. So I hope you're listening to me. If you go with the Orange County Fire Authority, it's a good organization. The people are good, the firemen are good. I warn you, watch out. They say one thing and do another. I'll be quiet.
John Dimitri.
How
you doing?
Good evening, Mayor Jones. Council members, my name is John Dimitri. I actually live in the city of Orange, and I'm going to talk a couple of points, and I'm going to be scattered a tad. I guess it's the night of the Johns to kind of bring out the fly in the ointment when you have a presentation. First off, what a dynamic city you have and an absolutely stellar fire department that you currently have. The service levels absolutely exceeds a lot of other cities in not only the state but the nation. The presentation by the fire authority is also stellar, and their service is going to be just as good. Now, a couple points that I have to make in reference to service begins primarily with some statements that are in the report dealing with the dispatch center. The dispatch center currently has about 146,000 incidents a year, staffed with 9 dispatchers working 24-hour shifts. Those 146,000 incidents roughly generate 184,000 emergency calls via 911 or the 10-digit phone lines. What's not in the proposal is actually staffing any additional personnel. As a matter of fact, currently at the Fire Authority, one of the problems or issues that's arising is actually a reduction in staff, and that's the packets I provided actually show a proposal reduction of, at times, up to 4 personnel. Now, with a dynamic community such as yourselves, and the cultural diversity, and especially this the stellar Vietnamese community that is an economic driver here in the city of Garden Grove, it also takes a significant amount of time for a dispatcher to process a call. In that is, we at the 911 center have no Vietnamese speakers. And that might be a benchmark that you can include into your discussions with the fire authority, is mandating prior to a transition is hiring additional staff that are specific to Vietnamese speaking in your community. I think that would be very important, and it would say a lot to your residents. The other portion, a couple other things that need to be pointed out real quick. On top of the service reductions that are currently being proposed, bless you, is that with a reduction in staff that's currently being proposed at the Fire Authority on the 24-hour shifts down up to 4 personnel at any one time in 24 hours, is that when we're taking calls, there may be the chance that a call is put into queue. That currently doesn't happen because the Fire Authority exceeds and serves the current community very well. Now, something that has to be addressed that I don't think was addressed at all at this point is actually the biggest player in the tent, which is the city of Irvine. And you don't want to be at the whim of the city of Irvine. They have stated multiple times over the last few years that they plan to withdraw from the Fire Authority. If you look at the Orange County Grand Jury report that was just published for the 2017-2018 Grand Jury, it actually very clearly stated, let me find it, Irvine's withdrawal would be considered a direct threat to your costs, and any built-in cost savings expressed in the operational challenges would be affected to a significant part of the 1.8 million the people of the OCFA serves. That's significant. If they withdraw, there is, I would think, a potential cost increase. While they're under the Structural Fire Fund, which is a different funding, that would have a direct impact because of their cost contributing to the agency. So that really needs to be spelled out when you have your actual sit-downs and really go through the numbers with the representatives of the Fire Authority. Additionally, as Irvine has kind of bullied their way through on other items, one of them actually was due to SB 302 and AB 2193, and actually was a lawsuit that was filed by the county against the Fire Authority as well as the city of Irvine to invalidate via the courts a little move they tried a couple of years ago, and the appellate court of California actually ruled in favor of the county because their actions violated Government Code 6503.1. Now, all that's important, and you have to look at that. Now, again, it affects structural fire fund. So it's not that, and it doesn't affect your bottom line. However, it goes back to the point I'm making is that Irvine and the South County cities tend to coalesce around ideas and push it on North County cities. Now, one of those points was very well demonstrated today with the homeless issue at the county, is South County gathered, pushed back, and directed the Board of Supervisors to go a different direction. They do it a lot. They're very good at coalescing behind an idea or an item. So when you take over, when your fire service is taken over, you have to remember it. While you have a voice, there are other voices there, and they're very good at gathering together on point. For your agency, the North County cities tend to be very autonomous. They act very much alone compared to the organization that presents themselves in South County. Again, throughout the document that you were presented, there are a number of little flaws, little typos here and there, but the point I really want to just talk to is, did I run out of time, Steve?
Yeah, just about.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead and wrap it up.
Okay. Basically, the big point is look at your 911 staffing for the center. Reduction in service is not the way for you folks to go. And then I'll conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, Mona Marche.
Good evening. I am a Vietnam-era veteran of the United States Air Force, and I'm here to speak about the recognition of the Vietnamese refugees in the school curriculum of the state. My remarks are actually paralleling it because I feel, along with many others, that the Vietnam veteran himself and herself are forgotten, and I'm all for the curriculum including the Vietnam community. However, I have noticed through the years that my brother veterans and some sister veterans of the Vietnam era are forgotten, whether they are already dead or homeless or not getting the benefits they need. I think it would be nice and fair if they were also included in the curriculum, because if it wasn't for them and for those who didn't make it back, whether it was physically or mentally, the Vietnamese community would not be here and prospering and adding to the prosperity of Garden Grove and Orange County. Somehow, I don't know how, I just heard about this today, but I know I just had to come here so that my brother and sister veterans will not be forgotten. Because we are the forgotten veterans, the Vietnam-era veterans. And I'd like to have them parallel or whatever. They must be included, because without them, some of our new citizens or those who are born here of them would not be here and would not be doing as well as they are. Thank you.
Nick Dibbs.
Mayor Jones, members of the City Council, citizens of Garden Grove, my name is Nicholas Dibbs. I'm here on a couple of issues. I'll start off with the first one, which has to do with and I've sent each of you an email, which I'm going to give you a hard copy so you can refer to it. Pass that around, please. We have a situation with Long Beach Community Hospital, which is less than 9 miles from the west end of Garden Grove, shutting down. Now, as the firefighters in this room know, whether it's an ER in LA County or Orange County, the closure of one ER can affect what goes on in Orange County as well as in Long Beach, because if we end up with an earthquake or a major event, trauma event or something, every ER bed, every ER physician is needed. Now, you have in this packet a letter, and by the way, I'm doing this as a volunteer. I'm a volunteer with the Community Hospital Long Beach Foundation Task Force Legislative Committee. Nobody's paying me to do this. I'm doing it on my own. I happened to be born at the hospital, so I care about it. But it's also a very good hospital, and it's close to West Garden Grove. Now, all I'm asking you folks to do tonight is agendize this to the next meeting on April 4th, asking for a letter, just a simple letter of support for AB 2591, authored by Assemblyman O'Donnell, which will give a 5-year extension to do the seismic adjustments that need to be done, but to keep the hospital open. If they don't pass AB 2591, the hospital will automatically close. If it can get passed through the Assembly, then there's an opportunity to keep the hospital and the ER open. So this is important. I know this is in LA County in Long Beach. However, every single ER, whether it's across the border in Long Beach or in Norwalk or down here at Los Alamitos Medical Center. Los Alamitos Medical Center only has a certain capability. We have over 8,000 seniors in Leisure World. If we end up with a major trauma event, we need this hospital open, not closed. So I'm just asking the council tonight to please, one of you or several of you, to please agendize this, just asking for a letter of support. And we want, the City of Long Beach is on board, as well as the LA County Board of Supervisors and others, to get this AB 2591 passed so we keep the ER open. It's easy to close a hospital. It's hard to reopen it. And we need to keep this hospital open. Okay, so you have the letters, you have the link to the website and so on, information. But if you'll please get it on the agenda for the April 10th meeting. Now, with regard to Councilman Bowie's request supporting Senator Janet Nguyen's bill to include in the school curriculum Vietnamese American refugee experience, I'm all for that. I'm a teacher and an educator. I'll be doing a letter to Senator Nguyen and to this council asking, can we also please include not only the veterans and what they went through, but the Pentagon Papers, as well as the speech that I keep mentioning from time to time called Beyond Vietnam, which was Dr. Martin Luther King's speech of 50 years ago, where he said we need to end that war. And it didn't end soon enough. It should have ended sooner. But anyway, the parallels to what went on in Vietnam, the tragic experience of over 1 million Vietnamese or 2 million Vietnamese killed on that side, and the veterans and so on in the South Vietnamese Army, and on this side were tragic, and we need to avoid war. And so I support your effort, and I hope we get this in the curriculum because it's important that students understand this. Now, with Councilman Beard's effort for comment later in the agenda today, item.
10 seconds, Nick.
How many seconds? 6 seconds. Okay.
Yeah.
We need to get the Youth Commission back. And I had the pleasure of attending Youth and Government Day in the city of Huntington Beach. Their Youth Commission is going. And I have the application, the information from the city of Huntington Beach. I'll pass it on. I'm in favor of that, Chris. Thank you.
Maureen Blackman.
this point, I don't know. Hi, I'm Maureen Blackman. At this point, I don't know if talking about bus benches is a good thing or a bad thing. Wow, what a heavy schedule. I know that there's a lot more pressing issues than the bus schedule, the bus benches, but like I say, maybe it's a good thing. I never dreamed that we'd be focusing on this at this time, but it was on the agenda today, so I wanted to mention it. I appreciate everybody taking the time to really take this matter to heart, even though it does seem kind of silly at times. Rick and I had the fortunate opportunity to meet with Michael Culver from Focus Media this week, and I wanted to express what a pleasure it was to meet with him. I didn't know there was so much involved with bus benches and transit routes and street furniture. What I came away with was really the impression of his dedication to making this right and to taking all these little aspects into account. And it feels really good to have a vendor working in the city that does that. I appreciate it. What Michael had went into was, even during the time that we were on a slight hiatus, they went ahead and removed the, 2,000 or 3,000 concrete bus benches. They removed some of the excess new ones that were put in, and are anxiously awaiting our opportunity to make a decision on the colors or color. One night this past week, which again, this is so ridiculous, I went from Huntington Beach, where I work, through Garden Grove, through Westminster to Fullerton, and lo and behold, I was checking all the bus benches out as I went down. There was browns and tans and colors that just blended into the background. So at the meeting that we had with Michael, I said, was there any other city in the county, or even any of the cities that he worked with, that made bold decisions? And he said no. And I felt like Mayor Jones for a minute, and I said, well, that's cool. I thought it was really a vibrant move on our part to pick a bold choice. We didn't really settle on the exact color yet, but I did want to say we should have a story tied to the, I said here, we should have a story as to why you decided to go bold, and that story should also be told. I think with our Adirondacks, the art on the homes, at the cottages, steelcraft, I think the benches could turn into something much more than besides something that people sit on to get their ride here and there. So with that, I wanted to say once again, thank you very much to Michael for educating us on this, and I look forward to the decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. John DeWong.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I signed up for item 6A. May I speak during that time? Was more germane?
But it's not, I don't know, can...
May I be revisited at that time where?
It's not a public hearing, though, so that's just it's just an item for discussion.
Prerogative of the chair.
Normally, the speakers would, they would normally speak now at this time. I mean, but it's really up to the council if you want to, take testimony at the time.
It's prerogative of the chair normally.
Well, I think I prefer if you just went ahead and did comments now, and then you're welcome to stay during that item, and if we have any follow-up questions, then I can certainly bring you back at that time.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Beard and members of the council. My name is John Duong. I'm Vice President of Development for Clear Channel Outdoor. The gentle lady previously talked about bus benches and whatnot. We were informed, or at least I was informed internally last Friday, of a prior council discussion regarding bus benches and shelters and whatnot, and we were caught up to what was discussed here in the prior council meeting, and we thought that we appear to you before you today to be available to answer questions that you may or may not have. In addition to that, I'd like to volunteer the fact that we'd like to correct some misstatements as part of the record. There were a few items that were discussed. Number one, Clear Channel has been in the business of outdoor advertising for over 100 years. We're headquartered prior in Southern California market. we have been operating bus shelters in 24 cities out of the 34 cities here in Orange County. We are not going away from this business. And we've been here a long time, and we'll hopefully be in this business for another century. And in addition to that, we actually added shelters. We added over 500 shelters in the Southern California market. We have some 2,400 shelters in our portfolio of different outdoor assets that we have. So we're not going away from this business. We have been in a long-standing relationship with the city. We have, with regards to the bus shelter agreement, the current agreement began in 2007. However, we have, prior to that, there are previous agreements as well, so we've been in business, in terms of a business relationship with the city for several decades. We are now in our 11th year of the current contract. We have paid through that relationship over $1.3 million to the city to date. Annually, as the remaining term of 3.5 or so years, we're paying the city a guaranteed sum of $140,000 per year. In totality, the city is receiving $1.9 million for that service that we provide. Beyond in terms of providing that, the monetary aspect of it, we also service the shelters. We pick up trash, we clean up around our shelters and whatnot. I don't believe there exists the comparable vendor coming on board to assist the city in that aspect, provide that service. And a couple of years ago, we also expanded this relationship with the city, where we had a billboard on the digital billboard on the 22 freeway by Harbor. And that relationship, the city is garnered in totality of that development agreement, $1.5 million benefit to the city. So this existing relationship is about $3.5 million to the Fed benefits of the residents of the city. And we hope that, in all, we hope to be here longer, and we hope to extend this agreement when the time is appropriate, and work together with the city in terms of how best to sort out the different confusions at this point in time. But in summary, we're not going away. We'd like to be here. We'd like to be here longer. We'd like to work with you and continue and develop this relationship with you for long durations. And I'll remain behind in case, in the event that you have questions, we'll be available to answer them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And that's the last card I have, so that concludes oral communications. Do you want to? Yeah, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back to continue the meeting.
Yeah.
Clerk, would you like to call roll?
Member Beard?
Here.
Member O'Neill?
Here.
Member Tu-Hao Wen?
Here.
Member Klopfenstein?
Here.
Member Kim Wen?
Here.
Vice Chair Bowie?
Yeah.
And Chair Jones.
Here. We did oral communication simultaneously with City Council already, so we have 2 consent items. Do I have a motion?
Move.
Oh, wait, who, okay.
I'll second.
Oh,
2 minutes second here.
call to vote.
Second.
And I vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Thank you. Any matters from agency members? Seeing none, we will adjourn to sanitary district.
With that, I'd like to ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Okay. Member Bowie?
Yeah.
Member Jones?
Here.
Member Klopfenstein?
Here.
Member Kim Wen?
Here.
Member Tu-Hao Wen?
Here.
Vice President O'Neill?
Here.
And President Beard.
Here, we've covered oral communications, consent items. One item, that would be the minutes of March 13th, 2018. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Call for the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, any matters from members? Any matters from the general manager? Seeing none, we'll move back to the city council meeting.
Okay, we will reconvene city council and move on to consent items. Recommended that items 3A through 3E are acted on simultaneously unless anyone would like to pull an item.
No. Move to approve.
Second.
Call to vote.
Okay. Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, which takes us to items for consideration. Item 4A.
Okay, item 4A is the required financial disclosure to implement a California Public Employees Retirement System 2-year early retirement option. This is a continued item, and Ms. Eifert is here to give the report.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, on February 27, 2018, staff previously presented the City Council with a required CalPERS financial disclosure for the implementation of the city's early retirement incentive program. CalPERS offers this program for public agencies facing downsizing, layoffs, and or reorganizations due to financial pressures or organizational changes. The early retirement benefit is intended to generate short-term and long-term savings through voluntary attrition of personnel. At that time, staff disclosed the eligibility of 163 employees, which did not include employees of the fire department. The cost previously provided to all 163 employees is $11,806,466, or $2,659,114 annually. Subsequently, staff was directed by council to return to provide cost and savings estimates to include employees of the fire department. The fire department has 11 employees who meet CalPERS program requirements, which brings the total number to 174 employees. The CalPERS cost calculation formula requires the city to publicly disclose the cost of providing this benefit as if all eligible employees elect early retirement. The total present value of future costs for providing this benefit to all 174 eligible employees is estimated to be $12,953,940. The total cost is spread over a 5-year period, resulting in an annual cost of $2,917,554, or an increased employer contribution rate of 0.0477 over the same period. It is important to note that only a fraction of eligible employees will ultimately elect to retire early. Staff projects that approximately 20% of employees, including about 8 employees of the fire department, may elect to participate in the program. Based on those assumptions, you have before you a chart that provides estimated cost and savings for 2 scenarios. Table B shows estimates if the fire department ultimately remains with the city, and Table C shows estimates if fire services are contracted out to the Orange County Fire Authority. The related fire department personnel cost based on estimated participation in the program is projected at $827,722, or $186,424 annually, bringing the total cost of the program to $3,189,015, or $718,247 annually over 5 years. Assuming that fire services remain with the city, which is there for at Table B, estimated net annual labor cost reduction is about $1.4 million. However, if fire services are ultimately contracted to OCFA, which is reflected in Table C, the related costs remain the same, but since the city would not be able to manage labor costs if the services are with OCFA, net annual labor costs would be reduced by approximately $279,000. The ultimate cost of the program and net annual labor cost reductions achieved depends on which departments are included in the program and the number of eligible employees who elect to participate. It is recommended that the City Council certify either compliance with additional employer contributions disclosure required by California Government Code 7507 and 20903 with all identified eligible employees of $11,806,466 amortized over 5 years pursuant to the method of calculation set forth by CalPERS, or compliance with additional employer contributions disclosure required by the same California Government Code, with all identified eligible employees, including the fire department, of $12,953,940 amortized over 5 years, or 0.0477 increase in the employer contribution rate over the same period, pursuant to the method of calculation set forth by CalPERS. And authorize the implementation of the 2-year early retirement program for the indicated eligible employees. And finally, to direct staff to bring a resolution to effectuate the 2-year early retirement option for all eligible employees in the selected departments. Staff is available to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions of staff?
I have a question. So based on what we heard, thanks to Councilmember Bowie asking the question to OCFA, how does that change what we projected as far as fire if they were to go out to OCFA? Because I think I got a little confused. Kingsley, maybe?
What we presented, if you can bring up the chart there, what we presented, that scenario, it's if fire were to go over to OCFA, we don't have control and how we manage our budget. So all of that is a sunk cost. And as we heard from the OCA earlier, they don't price or, the contract is not designed that way where they can do refunds or discounts if you hire lower level employee versus, senior employees. So basically, bottom line is that if we do that at this point and include fire, it would be a reduction in the savings that we're anticipating, and it's a cost, we've articulated in that chart. And if we go with the 20% that we think is likely to take it, which will include, I believe, 8 fire employees, there will be a net reduction in the savings of about $279,000.
Thank you, Kingsley. Colleagues, I just want to say that I think that we should move forward with moving this with including fire. I think that when firefighters agree to work for Garden Grove, they're guaranteed something when it is their time to leave, and to not have that equity there for them that we're giving to the rest of our employees doesn't seem fair to me, but I'll leave it up for further discussion.
Mayor Pro Tem Beard.
Question for the city attorney. They gave a presentation, and they were willing to extend our proposal till, did they not say till the end of the next fiscal year? So it's June of 2019. So with that, are they held liable? Are they held accountable to that date and time? They said it tonight at a public meeting. Is it still hold true? That's what I'm basically asking. Because it has a bearing on, like, if these firefighters retire now and they're in this stage of waiting for perhaps a year and 3 months, that has a bearing on us maybe including fire in this proposal?
All I can say is that we don't have a contract signed with Inc., so until we have that, we have to take them by their word.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
Question
I want
and-
to agree with my colleague.
Question and
Councilmember
clarification, right? I think it's very clear from the answer by OCFA that whatever they are proposing, it have nothing to do with how many junior or how many seniors staff that we have currently have or are going to have at the time that we transition. It is also my understanding based on the answer that is their proposal have nothing to do with our senior staff, but it have to be based on their staff structure of what they think is important to do a good job for their customer, in this case our city. And so let's say we have, just for simplicity, let's just say we have 100 firefighters, and 60 is at this level, 40 is at that level, and 20 and 40, the other 40, the other 40 and 20 and another 40 at 3 level. They don't look at that, and they may not transition all of them over. They may, during negotiations, they may determine that, hey, I do not need 40 of your seniors. I only take 30. Then the other 10, we have to, negotiate with them what is going to happen, right? So all of those things we don't know. So before I was under the assumption that all of our firefighters will be transitioned over, but based on the answer, that's not known. That is up to be negotiated. Is that correct? Based on the answer.
Yes, to the mayor and Councilman Bowie, I believe it's my understanding in their proposal that all of the current firefighters that we have will all be transitioned over to OCFA if that's what's chosen.
That's what I assume.
Yeah, and it's pending. I think they mentioned background checks and some other typical stuff that they do that you would assume.
But when I asked them about, if people may take early retirement and this and that, how that affect the, the proposal, the cost and things like that, their answers is not in line of what I understand, of my understanding about their proposal. The chief did mention that their proposal it's not based on how many seniors firefighters we have, how many junior we have, and how many entry level we have. It only based, and this is what he said. We could go back to the recording later to make sure. But they said that they do not know whether they need, that many senior people. They may need less. If they need less, those people transition over will have to be negotiated whether they will come over with the same rank or not. If that's the case, our firefighter may not. If I'm a senior guy with 20 years of experience and I'm coming over and I have to step down, I would not like it. So again, we are not saying that it will be this way or that way or other ways. All I'm saying is we totally do not know because we don't have a contract. All of these things will have to be negotiated with them. So we do not know at this point whether it is favorable, whether people will agree, the firefighter will like it or not. And so I don't think we will have the answer anytime soon, what we are going to do and what it will be like. With that, I think it's very important that we stick to our obligation. Now, to me, this item 4A is very, very clear. Either we vote yes to include firefighter today, or we vote yes, or we don't. So, from a purely financial, it is financially more benefit to the city that we don't include them. But from a governance, good practice and governance perspective, we ought to include them. It's their right. They have earned this, and because we don't know what we are going to do, whether we are going to OCFA or not, and if we do, when are we going to? With that unknown, I think we need to include them.
Let me jump in on something you said, because I was following your logic, and although we don't know all the details of what's going to be negotiated or what could be negotiated in with OCFA, what we do know is that they would get a benefit of cost savings if they didn't have to take 4 or 5 or 6 senior level guys, right? There would be a cost savings to them, and basically what they just said is we wouldn't pass that through.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So that
Correct.
part intuitively doesn't resonate
Right.
with me, and I think we still need to have a further conversation with them if we were to move forward in that regard, to say, obviously, if we had some early retirements of our 28-year guys or whatnot, that would create a cost savings for them to matriculate, assuming they're taking all of our guys in, which was the assumption that we're all under. It would, they could replace those positions, not fill them, or they could replace them with less expensive guys earlier on in their careers. John?
I just wanted to say that at looking at 4A, regardless of the fire authority contract, I think, we've already, that could be 6 months down the road on that, on negotiating that. In good faith, I don't see how we couldn't include the firefighters at this point, moving forward, because we don't know what's going to happen down the road. And we've already factored in, into our 2-year budget, a cost savings for doing the early retirement, and the rest of the city employees are waiting to find out, what's going to happen. And if we don't implement something by June, it throws our whole timetable off. So I'm inclined to include the firefighters and absorb that cost. We'll figure out a way to absorb that less of a return. We're actually getting a cost savings, I think 1.14 over for that year, right? Yeah. So I'm inclined to go ahead and vote that for them tonight to include fire.
Tuha?
Well, after I listened to the proposal by the OCFA and look at the chart, I echo Council Member Kim Won and John. I think we should include the firefighter just to be fair, because we obligate to the firefighter who have long years of services to City of Garden Grove, so we should be including them as well.
Thank you. Any other comments? Anything new?
I just want to quickly kind of chime in for clarification purposes, because I asked that question of OCFA. So they're going to be taking all of our 84 sworn-in firefighters. It's just at the different levels, which is why I asked about demotion. So they're going to take 3 battalion chiefs. So the positions, the 84, there will be 3 battalion chiefs, 20 fire captains, 18 fire apparatus engineers, and 36 firefighter paramedics. So that's why I asked about the demotions, because that kind of was where I was getting my rationale as far as approving this early retirement. Based on the answer that they gave, is sort of why I've been saying, in good faith, we need to include firefighters. We've guaranteed them something when they've agreed to work for us, and as an equitable measure, we should give them what they were guaranteed when they signed up to work with us. By June 2019, we don't know if we'll be going with OCFA or not, and so I think it's imperative that we make this decision on their behalf. And I would, unless there's further discussion, I'd like to motion to move this item with including firefighters.
Second.
Second it?
We'll all second. We'll all second.
We all
Second.
second.
Oh, second it.
You ready to vote?
Please call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, we'll move on to ordinances for second reading, 5A.
5A is the second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2890, entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove amending sections 141210 and 141230 of Chapter 1412 of Title 14, Water, of the Municipal Code relating to water rates and charges.
Any discussion? If not, I'd like to move it. Call the vote.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Me.
Two up.
Second.
Motion received. 6 yes votes with Councilmember O'Neill voting no.
Okay, thank you. Takes us on to matters. We do have a bunch of matters tonight. Usually large amount of matters. So 6A, and this is a continued discussion on the agreement with Focus Media Group regarding bus benches, as requested by the city manager. Do you want to start us off, Scott, or how do you want us to dive into this?
I think we have Director Bill Murray here, who's going to give us a little recap of some of the work that they've done over the past 2 weeks.
Yes, I can certainly provide that. Thank you, Mr. Stiles. As you heard, we did have a speaker earlier representing Clear Channel, and they provided you quite a bit of the information that I was going to pass on, so I'll try and cut this a little bit. But we actually did meet with Focus and had conversations with Clear Channel as well to kind of coordinate the efforts between the two companies to achieve a uniform theme with the benches. So with Focus Media Group, they've agreed to remove all of the concrete benches by mid-April at their own cost. Most of the existing metal dark green non-advertising benches will be replaced with new advertising benches. The few that remain will be recoated with a color that matches the chosen color at no cost to the city. In addition, Focus Media has agreed to share the costs for repowder coating to a new color on their benches if the city decides to go that route. So that cuts the cost down to just $7,700. A few key bus stops that had 2 advertising benches next to a blue Clear Channel shelter have been selected, and they reduced that back down to just 1 green bench. That's just in a few areas. Kind of highlighting some of Clear Channel's comments. We've had an existing and a fairly strong relationship with Clear Channel for a couple decades now, and they have no intention of relinquishing the contract. They'd like to continue. So they are going to take on a couple efforts to go out and look at the shelter and their condition right now and make some spot repairs if needed. Clear Channel considers the condition of the existing shelters actually pretty good when you look at some of the shelters in our neighboring cities. They do get worn. When they get graffitied, they've got to take a chemical to wipe off that chemical, which does kind of dull the sheen, so to speak. And that's a constant battle. And you'll basically see the same type of effect on Focus's product as well. They might be bright and shiny now, but in a couple of years they may be fairly close to what's going on with Clear Channel shelters at this point. So, but they are going to take a look at that. They were able to provide us some costs if we wanted to completely repaint the shelters, or actually do that with the powder coating, not paint. That was a minimum of $300,000 to get all of the shelters over to a different color. And there's some additional costs that they'd have to look at as well. That was kind of a first brush type of a cost estimate. They could just go ahead and just put traditional blue paint over it, or whatever paint color you choose, on top of the, just basically repaint them. That'd be about $65,000. But that problem, it's going to quickly fade. You're going to have chipping and really be affected by graffiti in a fairly short period of time compared to the powder coating. The paint just really doesn't hold up. So those are kind of the couple of the options that we have with Clear Channel. Like I said, they are not interested in revising their contract at this particular time, and they want to continue to the end. And I believe that is the same comments that were iterated before. So at this time, based on the information provided, staff recommends the most cost-effective approach, which would be to powder coat the new benches a color blue to match the shelters. Once the Clear Channel's agreement comes to a conclusion in about 4 years, I believe, at that time it would make sense for council to kind of take a look at the relationship between the two, the shelters and the benches, and possibly revising colors at that time. We await and hope that we're able to settle the color issue at this particular point in time so that we can move forward and try and get these two schemes and designs together. So that concludes my report, and I'm available should you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions of staff?
Question? I don't have any questions, but I thought
Hold on. Does anybody have any questions of
any
staff?
questions? No.
First of all, with regard to just clarification or anything that was reported?
This may be redundant, and I apologize. In terms of the Clear Channel shade structure benches, do they come out and service and clean those, or is that the job of Public Works?
No, they do actually clean that, remove graffiti. They're responsible for, sometimes there's lights in there. They do have trash receptacles next to them as well, and they take care of that.
And the repainting, if need be?
Some touch-up work. Like I said, they're not, they are going to go out and take a look at the shelters after some of, the comments that were raised at council. So they're going to be taking a look at that and trying to spruce them up a little bit, so to speak.
That'd be great. Okay.
Question for staff. We talk about colors and this and that. And you touch a little bit about the density. Maybe we have sometimes in some location we have so many, like 3, maybe 2 bench and the shelter next to each other. That seem, when I say next to each other, I mean physically next to each other, not just at the other side of the intersection. How much is too much and how much is okay?
First of all, how many of them are there that are where you have a bus shelter next to one of the new benches?
I don't have that information with me.
I thought I remember 27 from the last meeting.
Does that make sense? Is it make sense to have them a little bit farther away from each other? Because why do we need to have a bus bench next to a shelter?
That is a decision that's made by the companies for advertising purposes.
Well, from city perspective, right?
Yeah, what say do we have in that? I'm sorry to repeat this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, under the contract provisions, we've given them the ability to select various locations, and they've selected. We don't have any provisions for not allowing a particular location. That being said, Focus has been very accommodating. They have reduced the densities in a couple areas. If there's some other areas that are concerned, then we can address that with them as well.
Is it? I really don't know, right? So I'm just looking at from a practical perspective. The resident may not want another 2 benches next to each other. We don't need that. So it's more from a advertising purposes by Focus Media or by Clear Channel that perhaps that location is a prime location, and it's good to have a bus bench there or shelter there. But if there is already a shelter, then there shouldn't we as a city say, hey, we have the right not to allow another bench next to it. Or if there is a bus bench there, then Clear Channel shouldn't set up a shelter next to an existing bus bench, because it doesn't make sense. Even though there is a incentive to select that location, is that something that we can, from a zoning perspective, allow or not allowing that?
Like I said, we've already entered into a contract. That contract allows up to 175 benches throughout the city. We don't have language in there that specifically gives us the authority to disallow something. However, Focus has been very good to work with.
Then it is then we mishandle it. We should have put that in the agreement as a conditional use agreement. Because otherwise, if someone go in there and put 10 bench, so what you're saying is if let's say I'm a company that has a contract, right? I couldn't then build 10 bench next to each other, and we will not be able to say anything?
Like I said, we do have some say, but we don't have the specific say to prohibit them from doing something. So if you want to insist...
What do you mean by some say? I don't like ambiguous syntax. I want to be clear.
Okay,
what do you
then
mean by
let's
some
make it perfectly clear. We have no say.
Okay. Then we screw up.
That's your opinion.
So you're saying that if the conditional use permit allows someone to have the right to put 10 bench next to each other, and we didn't foresee it, that's not acceptable to me. So I think that you did not foresee it. I, as city council, did not foresee it. It's my fault that I did not catch that, and I need to admit that. And I need to take that responsibility, and I do. I had wished that I, have an oversight to see that, but I didn't. So right now, we have no say in terms of saying whether they can put 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or even 10 together. I mean, of course, they would not put 10, but I'm really sad that we didn't foresee it.
Mr.
Bowie, may I interject a bit?
Hold it 1 second, Mr. Mayor and Councilman Bowie. Just I want to add a couple points. One is we did put some conditional uses along Harbor Boulevard. I think I might have even talked about that at the last meeting. We know we've got a tourism improvement district all along Harbor. They're already doing some branding along there, so that was part of the discussion, to prevent any benches from being located along there. Obviously, from a practical standpoint, if Focus Media Solutions was to inundate a certain area with 10 benches along the area, we'd be having conversations with them about the inappropriateness of that, and we would seek to remedy that. I think all indications are so far that they're more than willing to work with us on it when we have those situations. Now if there's a question about whether 175 is too many sprinkle out around the city, we can have a discussion about that. Was it too many? We'll have to, evaluate that as we go. But we will continue to work with Focus Media Solutions, especially where we see we've got more of a concentration of benches to try and deal with that if we've got that issue.
Mayor, if I may add?
Can I just ask, because I thought of a question, because I know when this came up originally, it was proposed, and this is a question for Mr. Murray. I know that Focus, their locations were based on traffic, how many people get on the bus at that point. Obviously, the major intersections have the shelters, because there's that's where all the transactions take place as far as people getting on off the bus. So they do it on, how many riders are getting on. But it was proposed to us that they had they knew each location on how many stops there were, how many people were getting off. So I don't think it was their intent to just throw in, 3 or 4 benches. I think they had a plan on where the most people were, where the bench could be accommodating to people instead of sitting. And I just wanted to clarify that. That did come up when we were going through, didn't it come up on the...
Was there a site plan submitted of
I don't know if there's a
where they're
specific
gonna
site
locate?
plan,
Was
but I
there
know
any,
in the discussions they talked
I
about...
would agree we were all a little fast and loose about just sort of saying, sure, go ahead and do whatever you want.
Well...
So no,
it's not that bad, but I mean...
Mayor,
with that
we
being
do
said-
have regulations for the location of bus benches. It's not in the agreement because the agreement incorporated the municipal code. We have a whole chapter in the municipal code that deals with what needs to be in the agreement and where the benches can go. So section 1136-110 of the municipal code says, benches or shelters shall be installed only at those certain site locations as expressly approved by the Director of Public Works. The benches or shelters shall be located only at active bus stops. If a bus stop is discontinued, the bench or shelter shall be removed and the site restored to its original condition by licensee within 14 days. And then the actual location has to be approved by Public Works and also agreed to by the transit company. Again, because they are located normally along the bus stops and routes. So we do have those provisions, and my understanding is that the locations were approved not by the director himself, by his designee. So there was a plan submitted that was approved.
With that being said, I was going to say earlier that I think we've come down to a situation where if we can agree tonight that if we go with staff's recommendation, and obviously it's not cost effective to repaint the shelters, so to paint the benches to match the shelters at this point, and if there are any locations where there's too many benches, we can talk to Focus. They've been very accommodating to that. I think right now it's coming down to a color, and we get the color to match and just move forward. In my opinion, that's where I'm at.
I still, why I'm very glad that Focus Media is good and team players and are very willing to address this issue that the residents are concerned with. And I'm glad that we are going to do something about the color. But we have not touched the density. I'm sure that is something that might or might not be an eyesore. And if it is an eyesore where there are so many, like 2 or 3 together, shouldn't we do anything? Because I don't want this to turn out to be just based on advertising alone. Advertising it alone.
I think Focus Media is here. They could come up and answer that question. I believe they've removed some benches. When we said when it was brought up originally that there may be a density problem, they removed some. And would you like him to come up and speak, or
in a minute? I think we do probably want to hear from him.
Okay. I just want the issue that have been brought up to us by the resident being addressed and not being dropped off the table.
Mm-hmm. This, I'd like to speak for a minute. This has become, I'm kidding. There's a lot of different issues. So I've heard the same thing that you're saying, Fat, is that, like, why is there a need for benches next to benches? I even question if there's any kind of a liability issue of having 2 companies with 2 different benches next to each other with accidents with who knows what could happen. And just sort of the clutter and the density look. So I think we'd like to ask Focus if there's only 27 of them, could they relocate those 27 somewhere else? Not to cut down their overall number, but could we separate them back out? That's one thing. 2 is, I think there's one fundamental flaw with the staff recommendation is that if the bright green benches were painted blue, they're still not going to match the bus shelters. They're not going to match the bus shelters. They're going to be bright, shiny, brand new blue next to 11-year-old faded, oxidized blue benches. And the next comments we're going to get are, gee, why do the bus shelters look so bad next to the bright, shiny, new blue, Dodger blue benches, or, that kind of thing, right? So it's still not going to match unless they're all painted. They're not going to match right now. So I think for that reason, I sort of have a preference too of moving them away from each other so it's not so obvious. So I don't know how that works or if that's possible. I want to engage in that discussion. Can we separate out the ones that were just recently located next to the bus benches? Because I think that alone is kind of a big source of consternation with our folks is that, gee, what are the different looking benches that just came in next to the old benches? And color, obviously.
And on the same light, we also want to protect the bus bench, right? If they already on an area where they already have a bus bench and there's no shelter, Clear Channel cannot just go in there and set a shelter next to a bus bench. I think then that would start a war between 2 rivals.
I think both entities can complement each other, but the reason that you have an additional bench next to the shelters, because those are the busiest locations, and they need an additional bench, but I'm not
But
trying
you
to-
cannot just do that just on the advertising needs. You have to look at it from other angle as well. You know, if I just do it on the advertising needs, I'm sure why not put 4 bench there? Because it would increase my advertising revenue.
Right.
I think the other thing that we're forgetting about too, as someone who used to have to take the bus while carrying groceries with my siblings, with grandparents, with parents, however, is that when you're waiting for the bus and you have to deal with all those other things, there's nowhere to sit. And so obviously, I imagine there was some methodical reason as to why you put there heavy traffic, meaning there's a lot of people, meaning the bus benches that only really fit for average sized people, if that, with children on laps, is not adequate enough. So I think that's one component that we're missing while we're having this discussion. And I also think that while I get that we want to have cohesion and advertise the city to look great, we're also pinching pennies for other areas, and to talk about painting these green benches while we're trying to save money elsewhere seems a little ridiculous to me. I get it, and we're going to get a profit from them, and we're going to use that profit to repaint, but it seems counterintuitive to use revenue that we're supposed to be generating to then offset the fact that the colors don't match. But that's another discussion. I know people feel very fervently about that. But again, I think if there's a real issue as far as where they're located, could we look and have further discussion as far as the methodology that went into it? Because again, as someone who used to take the bus all the time, I like to have somewhere to sit while I wait for a bus that sometimes comes late or never shows up.
I want to just respond to that and maybe go on to another point is, for one, I understand and I appreciate that Focus Media wants us to figure this out and allow them to move on. They've got a bunch of other benches sitting in their shop. They've got stuff painted. They've got advertising commitments, I think, ready to go. And I think we owe it to them to help expedite and move this along, right? So that's one thing. I would like to not dilly-dally with this for too much longer. I believe the cost factor, if there's a repainting involved, is not an out-of-pocket cost that the city has to think. So this was a brand-new source of revenue just coming in, and we're going to get a little less revenue as a result of repainting if we repaint, just to straighten this out. But it's not an out-of-pocket expenditure. So I just kind of make that clear that it's that part. Yeah.
Yeah, I hate to take it back to color again. First of all, thank you, Mr. Culver, for being so accommodating and coming and listening to all of us constantly. If it's not the blue and it's not the lime green, then it's got to be something. So, I mean, does that mean that somebody picks 4 or 5 colors and we all, that one? I mean, what's the next step? If we are heading towards a color repaint, then what is that color? If it's not blue and if it's not the current green,
Let's ask this.
I
too.
think that's where
Yeah.
we need to get back there. I think right now.
And real quick too, is if the ones that are located next to each other were separated out and put somewhere else, then would that still be an issue? Or maybe yes, maybe no?
From the start, my biggest issue from the start was potentially moving the benches that were next to the shade structures away, because I think it made the green look even more glaringly green when they were next to the blue. So yes, I think that's an option, but I still am not so sure that the color works currently besides. So I want to make sure that we either put the color issue to rest or we start looking at a color scheme moving forward.
A game plan for
Yeah.
color, right?
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I mean, if there is only 27 locations, could you possibly move those benches away and just leave the color green, that color green? But like Councilwoman Kloppenstein said, I don't know if that color green is going to fly anyway. So, I mean, my feeling was paint them blue. Seems like we've got a reasonable offer here at the get-go. We got to get it right this time. We got to get right now, so we don't have to go through this again later in the near future. But maybe 4 years down the road we can get everything the same color. But I'm open to whatever color. Do we put it out there to the public to choose? But time is kind of the essence right now to get it done. So I don't think we have a lot of time to go out and poll the community and have everybody input on the color. I mean, I think we can do it.
Can we two-step it? So if they would be agreeable to relocate the 27 away from the existing bus shelter, so we separate that out, they could install all the rest of them that I believe are already made, painted, and bright green, right? install those and leave the offer open that we could.
That's true, yeah.
That we could repaint them in several months if there's a community pushback to say, we want to hire a color consultant and we want 4 samples and we want whatever, that kind of stuff, that we could still.
I think that would be good, but I still think we should at least be, in the meantime, looking at potential color change. I don't think we should put that completely to bed. I think, I like the idea of moving the 27, but I think part of that should be that we are kind of looking at another palette and seeing if that's something we should move.
I have this notion in the back of my mind that it's got to be more than 27. Is there, does anybody, we don't know how many, maybe...
That number, that's the same exact number that was in my head from last time,
I remember it was mentioned, but I'm just wondering if that could be true if there's only 27 shelters. I think there'd be more than that.
I think Clear Channel has a total of 98 bus shelters. I think Focus Media is approved to do a total of up to 175
Excuse me,
benches.
Mr. Mayor. I have an email from our staff. I believe there's 60 stops that have both a Clear Channel
60?
and 60
Okay.
in total.
Yeah.
27 were part of Phase 1, and then there were 33 stops that were part of Phase 2
Okay, so...
that had not yet been installed.
Oh, wait. Go back. So how many have been installed?
27 of the 60.
Yeah. Okay. So we can keep things moving along. Can we bring you up to, I mean, we're talking out loud here and doing a lot of stuff, and be prudent to involve you in the discussion.
Good evening, everyone. How can I help? How can I be of service?
Yeah.
So just a couple things. I mean, there's, we get requests all the time from cities like Westminster and Stanton and that want us to put more bus benches next to current shelters because it doesn't adequately solve the boarding issues. And we have done that and operated that for 30 years like that throughout the United States. So it's normal to have an advertising bench next to a bus shelter. I understand Clear Channel would prefer not to have one there, but it's normal. We'd be happy to analyze those 60 that we had proposed to put in and see how many of those and what the boardings look like and see if we could minimize that. To remove all the ones next to shelters would be a key loss for us of key locations. It also wouldn't serve the needs of the cities. I mean, there's boardings of up to a couple hundred people at one bus stop. They have a bus shelter that hold, I think, 2 to 3 people on a seat. So there's just not enough. We have never built more than 2 benches next to a shelter anywhere, and I think that's in our agreement that we're not allowed to. So we could never put 10 out at any one bus stop. So what else can I help with?
Pick a color that everyone loves.
So may I make a suggestion? Because I think the green is the future of what you're trying to go to. What if we took and analyzed taking the benches that are next to the shelters and found the matching blue that did look very similar to the one, so it's not a bright or off, it looks very similar, painted those blue and left the green out there. There's multiple cities that have different colored benches. They have business district colored benches and different things like that. And I don't think it would look that bad. I think it would look nice to have the ones next to shelter blue and the other green is kind of your forward vision of where the city's going to go. And then once in 4 years, whatever happens with the shelters, we'd be happy to eat half the cost to change out all our benches to whatever color Clear Channel ends up with. So,
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah.
I would very much like us to get to just a rational and sort of quick, so from a business standpoint, you guys can move forward, get the rest of them installed, get your contracts going and do that. So I'd like to get there. I tend to think what you said could work, and that's basically, if I heard it right, that the 60 that are ultimately located next to bus shelters, or approximately that amount, would be blue to match the existing bus shelters. And then I'm not sure on the rest. I think on all the other ones that are not next to existing bus shelters would be just left as they are currently?
Correct. Yes.
Just trying to understand the dynamic. Okay, cool. I think we want to hear from John Duong also here before we... Did you have anything else to add, or do we have any questions of... I don't know.
No, we
gotta
have to give
some direction.
staff direction.
Yeah.
I want to be clear on the recommendation Bill had was paint them all blue. And that's $15,400.
It's actually 7,700.
Half of that.
Because they would pick
It's
up,
half of that.
it's actually 7,700 bucks. They would pick up half the cost.
Okay. Can I weigh in on this?
Please.
I like blue. I like blue. I like Garden Grove blue. Green, yeah, it could be the future. For the next 4 years, I could live with blue. If we paint them all blue, and match close to existing with the shelters, I'm fine with that. I think, I never know you could overanalyze bus benches, but we've
Yeah.
done that. So
Did it?
that's what I'd
Okay.
like to do.
I think, I'd like to hear from John DeWong before we go any further.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do agree with Mr. Culver's premise that it's not uncommon to have a location where you have two benches or two shelters or two benches and shelter or whatnot combination. But in most instances, in terms of to the extent that we're involved, you'd like to have one operator at that stop because I like your analysis earlier above and beyond the fact that we maintain, because we have a trash receptacle there, that we pick up trash and whatnot on a frequent basis. Now you're adding more receptacles in there for us because that's our responsibility toward the city. But above and beyond the liability word that you mentioned earlier, I do agree. What if a situation does occur and you're going to have two operators just pointing fingers at one another? And I don't think the city want to be in that situation. Now, above and beyond that, I mean, you try your best to match color. One, if you mentioned already, is a decade old, and the other one is going to be brand new, and you're going to have residents noticing those kind of differences. So best to segregate it. Staff report says there are 250 stops in the city. There's enough stops here to spread them all out if you can. We have no issues with Mr. Culver being a complementary partner in terms of covering the city here. We wish we were involved early on so that we can kind of cooperate and find a better solution that we'll all kind of live and work together. But due to the analysis that you mentioned earlier, we strongly advise that we should separate the two above and beyond the aesthetic piece of it. There are operational and legal issues that may arise. That will be our recommendation.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
In my opinion, I think this is a topic that we very interactive overall.
That what?
Very interactive. All of us,
I think there's some lessons to be learned here. I do think we went a little too forward too fast on this one without doing enough due diligence about exactly what we were signing up for. So I think we just got to soak that one up. So what do we do from here, guys? Like, what's the best way to resolve this and fix it?
I agree with both, unfortunately. I do agree, and that's why I think that having two of them next to each other is really open up a lot of liability and can of worms. And this might be fair, like I mentioned. If Focus Media already have a bus bench at a certain location, Clear Channel should not go in there and set up a shelter next to it. It's already their area, and vice versa. But for what already happened, I don't know what to do because we didn't anticipate and foresee this. Mm-hmm. So whatever already happened, I think maybe we have to live with it. But moving forward, let not continue. So if there is already a shelter there, moving forward, there should not be a bus bench next to it. For those that already happened, maybe we have to.
so we leave the 27?
I'm still.
Oh, we move the 27.
There's 2 points to that, though. So, to me, if it was under the same operator and the same time frame and the same color and whatever, then I don't see necessarily a problem with having, to the point of like a busy bus stop that's got a lot of people hanging out. Then there needs to be more seating.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
To an extent.
To an extent.
Like 10 in a row, you go, wait, what did we just do?
Right. So same operator, same operators.
Yeah.
Yes, it can be, but not. Because then it's open up.
Two operators, there's whatever, there's maintenance issues, there's, one operator imposing more cost upon another operator because you've got more benches.
And also
putting
finger
trash
pointing.
in, that only one is finger pointing, that kind of stuff. So we botched that part. I don't know how to get out from that. And I also still assert that if we painted those benches blue, they're not going to match, they are not going to match the bus shelters. They're not. I can't even
But I
get
think
apartments to match.
In all
when they-
fairness, though, I think that the green was that particular shade of green was rushed. I think that we
Yep.
know that there is a huge palette of color out there, and there's
Yep.
beautiful shades of green.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to let something that's meh pass and allow that to just be the, I don't think that is a good decision or good business practice either, to say, well, we didn't really, but we're just going to have to leave it. I don't particularly like that either, and so
Yeah.
that's a concern.
Yeah.
I think that sets a precedent, and I don't like that.
The probably straightest, forwardest, simplest thing would be to repaint all of them blue to kind of sort of try and match the existing bus benches, so that's one thing. But I still think there's a separate issue of having the ones that are located next to each other, just as its own.
I
don't know.
Well, let me chime in a little bit. At this point, I think we have a contract with both companies. I think we need to honor that. I don't see a great liability to have a bench, 3 feet away from a shelter. They both take on their own liability of what their own stuff. As far as the trash, I know Focus Media said they would pick, even though it's not their responsibility, they would pick up trash if they saw it out there. But I think we need to honor both of their contracts. I think going with the blue, closest match to the shelters, is the way to do it and move forward. I mean,
What do you mean by if they see it? If they don't see it, they don't remove it? What
no, Councilman Bowie, I'm just repeating what they told me when they were up here before, that they said that in their experience in 30 years in other cities, that they help homeless people that are sleeping on the bench find placement. They pick up trash. I'm not defending their company. I don't carry it away.
Here's a liability finger, right? If it is my trash can, and someone else going there and mess with my trash can, what will be the liability? You don't have any jurisdiction over my properties.
It's on the street corner. It's
but the trash can is my property. What if your staff picking it up and damaging it, then who's become liable?
Right. Well, I'm saying trash that maybe isn't in the can. I'm not saying they're going to maybe pick up their trash. If there's trash, there's all kinds of situations that goes on with bus stops. That people graffiti them, they damage them, parts are laying here and there, people leave their trash. All I can tell you is that I know Focus Media has had a very good track record that has been documented in other cities, that they work with their cities to make sure that their area is clean, and that if there was even a homeless person that would happen to be sleeping on the bench, they would not just push them away, they would find out what their issues are and they'd help to try to place those. To me, that's an outstanding...
I agree, and the fact that Mr. Coben here is showing that he's very caring, he's a team player.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that there is a liability between two companies operating next to each other, right? Now, let's just say from a legal perspective, right? You set up your bench next to my shelter, and the people sitting there and put trash into my trash bin. It's not fair.
I totally understand what you're saying, but it's a public trash can at that point.
Can I ask a legal question of our city attorney? Mr. City Attorney, we have waivers related to liability. We're not involved in any of that, are we? If they're in close proximity, are we responsible for any issues between the two parties?
We're not. So the discussion is not really a legal discussion. It's more of a fairness, and I think that's what...
Yeah. Can I ask John back up here one more time? Just thought of something.
Yes, sir.
So you expressed that Clear Channel is still actively in this business.
Yes.
That you're not, in fact, trying to get out of this business. In fact, you would like to continue this onward. Would Clear Channel be up for repainting or repowder coating or whatever is proper the bus shelters for an extension of your contract? I mean, would that be something that could be negotiated with within the context of an extension?
I think
that would open up to, we could repaint them all to whatever color in the world we want to.
I think that's a fair question, and I think we're definitely open to that discussion. We can have time to work with staff to figure out that path, and I think that's a viable discussion to be had. We'd be interested in that. We would definitely, if we have term out of it, we definitely would like to see what kind of investment we're making in the city to make it look better, look newer.
If I understand it correctly, you guys have, you said 3.5 or 4 years left on the existing
Correct.
contract. So you want to
Correct.
finish that, but you would also desire to
Right.
extend
And
it and continue on.
if the situation is correct, we can pick up a new term and address that. That would help us out on, frankly, the capital side, because that's part of a capital investment. So that would work from an internal accounting perspective. And one other note about locations and whatnot. Part of our contract, there was an exhibit to the locations that the city identified as where to locate or install the shelters. And our practice is that we relocate shelters all the time due to whether it be a car hitting it, due to a bus stop seized in terms of using a corner. So we do that, and we do that in collaboration with staff throughout all of our, I mean, that's something that's very common. And again, I plead that, if we can find a way to segregate it, it would be most ideal. We're slightly different businesses model-wise. We're different format, and the bus benches are not, and we're not about the competition piece, but we're concerned about the operational and the potential legal piece there that may be an issue for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last comments. I think when we first saw this item on the agenda, I was excited to see that we were going to have more bus benches, because like I've mentioned a couple of times now, as someone who's used the bus, I appreciate having somewhere to sit. So when I saw the number, I thought, this is great. There's going to be way more benches for people who commute in and out of Garden Grove, residents of Garden Grove, to have places to sit and not have to stand and wait in the hot sun or in the rain or whatever, at least so they can gather the things as they're going on to the bus stop. So when this originally came, I was excited to know that we were going to be implementing more stops on heavy, busy traffic areas where people can sit. Number two, the people that come to this bus stop are going to be there anyway, so those trash cans are going to be filled whether they're sitting down or they're standing up. And also, when people are walking by, just because they're not using the bus doesn't mean they're not going to throw it in the trash can. And also, I've seen people that are standing there that throw it outside of the trash can, not even in the trash can, so it doesn't really matter at this point. If we're really going to get down and boggle down on the color, then I think we just need to pick a color and move forward, because this is kind of getting really ridiculous. I don't think that we're only generating about $20,000 a year from this project, and to now waste $15,000 of that revenue to change this color is still ridiculous to me. But if it's going to get us to a point where we can move forward, let's just pick a color and let's go.
I think we should move forward and in determine what color, what the process going to be, who's going to pick the colors. That's going to be another system, another discussion for the color, right?
What I was going to do was make a motion to recommend that we paint the bus benches, all the bus benches, to the color that closest matches the existing shelters, have it delivered, those color swatches to Public Works, have it approved by council, and then have move forward. That would be my motion, to move that and do that.
Second, but for sake of discussion,
Sure.
Any further commentary about the thought of them both being together? Two companies with two different things together? Let it go?
That's fine.
Okay.
I think
Second,
we're-
call the vote.
Okay.
All right, motion approved, 7 yes votes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to 6B.
6B is a discussion on recognizing Constitution Day on September 17th, and to direct the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission to develop low-cost activities to engage local high schools with civic engagement, as requested by Mayor Pro Tem Beard.
Yeah, I like the U.S. Constitution. I think it's a under-recognized day. Just doing a little research myself, Constitution Day is also considered to be Citizen Day on September 17th. And with that, I'd just like to mention a few facts, fun facts on the U.S. Constitution. It was the most interesting one, I think, of the 10. I'll cut it down to, I think, of the written national constitutions, the U.S. Constitution is the oldest and the shortest. Longest serving democracy. I think we did so well with the Youth and Government Day. I think this is an add-on to that, or can be. The timing may be different or difficult because school starts up in September, but schools are starting on August these days. So I was thinking of turning it into a sort of essay contest, perhaps, between the school district. I mentioned at the last meeting we have outstanding civics programs in the Garden Grove Unified School District. One of my favorites is Pacifica. So if we could engage the schools, if they'd be willing to do it, but at minimal cost, I think it can be at minimal cost. It's more an education effort sent out and working with the city and the school district together on this. And they may not be interested, and hopefully they are, but it's carrying on what we kind of did with Youth and Government Day. Mr. Dibbs talks about that, and that was a past heritage of the city getting more involved, or the city of youth and ambition. So I'd like to throw that idea out there, but mostly I would recommend sending it back, or sending it to the Parks and Recreation Commission. I think they're our de facto youth commission. I like that idea too, but limited staffing and such. I think we should give them a look, have them look at it and see what they could do to promote an essay contest. And the city could recognize those winners of the students who participate. And it could be something as, the U.S. Constitution, what does it mean to Garden Grove? What does it mean to you? It is, like I said, I think it's so not recognized as it's not a national holiday, but some people have made the effort to make it such. It's, can anybody tell me when the Constitution was established? Okay, see, that's my example of why we need to let people.
Are you asking us?
Establish, what was it, what? 1787. 1787. Oh. So, and those are just some fun facts. And there's, if I could, I'd go to Independence Hall. And I might say also that the U.S. Constitution was written in the same place, Pennsylvania State House, where the Declaration of Independence was signed, where George Washington received his commission as commander of the Continental Army, now called Independence Hall. The building stands today as Independence Mall in Philadelphia, directly across the National Constitution Center. So, little trivia facts, but it's our heritage, it's our government. So that's why I'm proposing that we reach out to the school district or pass it on to the Parks and Rec to possibly consider doing that.
Comments?
I appreciate your patriotism. Dress me up like Betsy Ross, give me a flag, I'm all for it. But I do think that I'm glad to hear that you mentioned a school district, because this does seem like something that would be better suited for them to maybe look into, and maybe they could share the burden or share the cost associated, whatever that might be, with the essay contest and so forth. I think that always relying on our commissions is important. So to see this go to the Parks and Recs Commission, I think is the right commission to look at it. And then hopefully they could come back before we move forward with anything else, tell us their findings, and then maybe we could, as you said, Terry, Rocco, whomever you want to connect with at the school district, to make sure that we're utilizing their efforts as well, and how to, again, to keep the costs low, I think is the key objective here.
Oh, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
And I think it can be kept low, and I can see it being worthwhile too as an educational project for the civics program.
So what's the?
I'd like
what's
to
the
make
ask
a
is
motion to
send
direct
it
it to the Parks and Rec for review and consideration of developing the concept of a Constitution Day.
And maybe also contact the school district?
Yeah.
You want to add that into that?
Yes, yes.
Great.
Yeah.
And it's mostly because Government Day works so well. That's why I'm basing this on. I think this could be a part of that as well, the whole youth program.
Yeah, I think the spirit is really beautiful. I think it's good. We just need to have, the scope of what it would be and what cost the city will share with the school
I'm not
district.
talking about parades, I'm not talking about this, not yet, but no. Seriously, I think it's a good educational tool.
And I think it's a good project to collaborate between the city and the school districts.
Yeah,
forward.
that's the question. I think it's educational oriented, so hopefully they will pick it up and see it that way.
And with a civics overtone, local government.
Yeah. Okay, I'll second.
Okay.
Call to vote.
Do I vote?
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, 6C.
Okay, this is recommended me. So, you know, when I first learned about this bill, 895 by Senator Janet Nguyen and 2 other state assembly, I thought of all of the things that Senator Nguyen have accomplished up to date. This is the most important. To me, I value this as very, very high. I remember when I saw this, I reflect back and I remember 2 years ago, I was involved with a group of young college students, Vietnamese American college students, and we was gathered together at the Westminster Community Service Center, and we engaged in some discussion, breakdown into group to see how much they understand about the Vietnamese refugee plight, how we came here, and what we have went through, and so on and so on. I was so stunned to find out that 80% of them know nothing. All they know is their parent came here some time ago. That's very much about it. And these are college students. And so I thought, geez, we then separate them into groups, and then we have us as a volunteer to get them excited and get them. We bring them pictures and other things to show what was our life had been when our journey had been when we escaped Vietnam. Some of us 40 years ago by boat, and other by this and by that. We go through various areas. So I think it's very important to with the Vietnamese American become a coherent part of this society, just like the other immigrants, the Italians, the Jewish, the African American came here 100 plus years ago. We do need to teach those in history in high school or elementary school. And so I think it's important for us, the city of Garden Grove, with about 70,000 Vietnamese American here in our city, about a third of our population, that we consider a resolution so that the state assembly and Senate know that this is important to our resident, and this is important to our state resident. And so I would like to ask my colleagues to join me to pass this resolutions. We can send it to the state Congress, which they will discuss this in the subcommittee sometime in April this year.
So it's still in the works at this point?
It's still in the works. They are going through the subcommittee hearings. Once it's passed the subcommittee hearings, then it will go to the Senate floor for a vote, and then it will go to the Assembly for the vote.
Okay. Is a resolution the appropriate mechanism at this point in time, if it's something that's still going?
There's 2 ways you can do it. You can adopt the resolution, or you can direct staff or authorize the mayor to send a letter of support. And you can individually contact local legislators to support the bill.
Yeah, your call.
I think something this important. I would wish that we would pass something that in the form of the resolution, so they know that we all supporting this.
Okay. I want to make a comment. I myself, as a refugee, I came here when I was 9, as a boat people. I think this is good, and I completely support whether we send a letter or resolutions. I support either way. In terms of want to continue what Councilman Fatboy was talking about, the event that with all the young adult college students or young professionals gathered last year. It was part of the education process for us. As we get the people together, and the older generations actually pass on their life experience to the younger to educate us what they've been through and why we here, and then what our visions or what mission in the future, how we move forward, and to be proud of the community as well. So I completely support.
Okay. And council member Tuha was there with me. We both volunteered to help.
Can we do both? A resolution and a letter of support?
Sure.
That?
I would like to make a motion to, send a resolution and the mayor send a letter to the state senate and state assembly.
I'll second that.
Did you want to bring a resolution to the next meeting and do it that way? So the
Yeah.
April 10th meeting?
Yeah, I think we have to, I think that's the direction, is we want to bring back
Okay.
a resolution for
Okay.
approval. Yeah.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, 6D.
Mayor, members of the City Council, at your last meeting, the City Council approved agendizing an item to discuss possibility of revisions to the municipal code relating to regulations and code enforcement of commercial properties. Mayor Pro Tem Beard made that motion. So, not knowing exactly what you wanted to discuss, what we did is we attached for you to the short report the 3 sections of the municipal code that are pertinent to this discussion. The first section, 932-180, deals with public nuisances in general. I want to clarify that these provisions of the code, 932-180, are not to be enforced by criminal prosecution or citations. These are basically to take action for the city to actually pay to abate the nuisance and then charge the property back for the cost of abatement. So this is a very long process because we have to comply with due process. We start with noticing, we start with trying to work with the property owners, and then if we're not getting compliance, then we get a court order to actually abate. We hire contractors to do the abatement, and then the cost of that abatement is then liened on the property, and then the costs are collected with the tax rolls. So that's the first section. The other 2 sections are the sections that code enforcement would normally either issue citations, notices of violation, or would be sent to my office for prosecution as misdemeanors. So 932-200 generally deals with maintenance of property, both residential and commercial, and 932-10 is specific to maintenance of vacant, unoccupied, and abandoned buildings. There is one other provision that I did not include in the code because I did not think that it was within the purview, but I want to let you know. We do have a registration requirement for foreclosed properties. If you recall back, in the downturn of the economy, a lot of properties were being foreclosed, and the banks were not reselling them. They were holding, waiting for the economy to come up, and the houses were, that were vacant were being broken into. They were not being kept, and so we established a registration requirement so that we knew where to send notices for the other nuisance abatement type of actions. So that section is not here, but it's available if you're interested in reviewing that as well. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Yeah, first question, is that applicable to commercial properties, that nuisance, that last one you talked about?
Oh, you mean for the foreclosed properties?
Yeah, register.
I think that the initial adoption pertained more to residential properties
yeah, okay.
because they were predominantly the properties that were being foreclosed, and the banks were just simply holding on to them.
Right. Well, let me let you know why I brought this forward. there's some, I'm pretty sure in all districts we have commercial properties that are in dilapidated condition. I think our code enforcement is going through reorganization. They're making more emphasis, or will be making more of an effort towards looking at commercial properties. So I thought this may be a good time to look over this code. Not necessarily us. I was thinking of referring this to the Planning Commission to get more details. It's been like 9 years since it was reviewed. So just as a cursory review, maybe there's some things that they could add to it. We could do a review of other cities, see what they have going on. And possibly maybe we could do a feasibility, or have them do a feasibility of, we hear talk about contracted code enforcement, maybe for commercial efforts. We always hear, well, maybe it's possible, but it always gets passed on, well, we'll look into that another time. Well, maybe they could look into that as well. Sort of as a hybrid code enforcement, have some private, if it's feasible. So that's why I would propose sending it to the Planning Commission, having them look at, well, maybe this is a viable option too, to supplement or add some code enforcement direct towards commercial properties if there's some, because I understand there's businesses out there to do that. It's a contracted service. So not to augment our efforts in code enforcement, maybe on the commercial side. So, but getting back to, I think I would suggest that the Planning Commission have a review of our existing codes, especially related to this, which is very good. Very good. This is good information, and I think we could fine tune it if there's more things we can do. I thought we didn't have potholes covered, but in parking lots, but this does. But other things, we have clotheslines listed in here. So do we really need that, or maybe we want to keep it in just in case?
What do you say, clotheslines?
Clotheslines, yeah. So that kind of stuff. So I'm sure the Planning Commission could dive into this and do a good job and report back with maybe some recommendations on doing some code enforcement on the commercial property side of it.
I like it. Cool. Do we need a motion and a whatever to direct it to go to Planning Commission for a review?
Is that the motion?
Yeah,
Okay.
to refer it to the Planning Commission for review and consideration of updating.
So to bring it back to the next agenda to direct that?
No, this
or-
is
This is an
this
actual
is the
item.
voting item. We
Refer to plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Refer to Planning Commission.
Yeah.
Refer to planning. Okay, and that was Beard and the mayor. Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor.
Yeah. Call the vote.
So, we vote to direct this to Planning Commission to study it and
Right.
propose to the council.
Study our
Yes.
current
Good.
code enforcement,
Yeah.
code and guidelines, or whatever.
Are we ready?
Yep. Call the vote.
Okay. Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, hang in there, guys. I've got one more. It's a good one, and really, I want to ask that we agendize something as a voting item for the next meeting to consider adopting a resolution. This is simply the League of California Cities that we're a member of is looking for support for a ballot measure that aims to try and unwind some of the negative effects of AB 109, Prop 47, Prop 57. So it's called the Reducing Crime and Keeping California Safe Act of 2018. They're still seeking qualification for the November ballot. They've provided sample resolution wording, so it would be sort of a simple write-in, City of Garden Grove, if it all passes the litmus test. Our chief of police seems to like it, is aware of it, likes it at first glance. Maria likes it. And so I'd like to agendize it for vote at the next meeting. Can't do it tonight. We've got to agendize it for the next meeting and bring it back with a formal resolution for support of this act being promoted by League of California Cities.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a motion.
Second.
Called vote.
Sorry.
There we go.
Can I ask staff to talk to IT and ask them to talk to the vendor and do something about this? This is clearly not acceptable to me from an IT guy.
Just like the weird little glitchy delays.
Like, it's delay. It's too long. It got to be better than this.
Yeah.
Can I go ahead and announce the vote?
Yeah. Okay.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
I agree,
So,
it's annoying. Nobody's
Yeah,
got-
so Scott, could you
I'll-
ask
I'll second to
our
wait.
IT staff to talk to the vendor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's either that or we need some Jeopardy music to be playing while we're there.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Okay, matters from council members, if you must.
Start there then.
Yeah.
I just want to comment on the retreat we just had. I think it was productive, it was well worth it, a lot of information, good information, the good, the bad, and what we had to listen to, what's coming up. I just want to mention the subcommittee is still maybe reinvigorated, perhaps. We have to decide as a council where we're going to go. But we have a ways to go financially for the city. And it turned into more of a financial workshop or budget workshop than anything else. It was worthwhile, and so we have some hard facts we're going to be facing in the future. But thank the staff for putting it on, and thank all my colleagues. I think we had some lively discussions there. So I'll leave it at that. Move on.
Just a couple of real quick things. So I'm so proud of our police and fire, the job that they're doing with, the little resources that we do have. We try to use them to the best of their abilities. So to start out the meeting tonight and recognize those officers in the police department that saved lives is just amazing. I wanted to mention that we, Councilwoman Kim Nguyen and myself, we went to the 112th annual Garden Grove Chamber of Commerce Gala Dinner, 112 years, and they recognized the Man and Woman of the Year, Scott Weimer, Mr. Garden Grove on Main Street, and Gail Knight, two very well-deserved folks. Please help out them by going down to Main Street and visiting both Gail and Scott there on Main Street. Gail is the founder of the nonprofit Hope, which helps women and children in need, and she does a tremendous job on very little money that she's able to raise. So if you're able to help out with Hope, if you can give a few bucks here and there, it would really help, because she really helps a lot of people. And then lastly, I just wanted to shout out for the Garden Grove Civic Women's Club. It's in District 2, and my mother and my wife are members, and they're having a dance, and I mentioned it before, in June 23rd. On a Saturday, you can buy tickets. It's a 50s theme, music, dinner, dance. All the proceeds go to disabled veterans in Garden Grove. So it's a fundraiser to contribute back to disabled veterans that live here in Josephine's house in Garden Grove. So that's coming up in June. I'll remind you before then. I think its tickets are $45 a person. You can contact the Women's Civic Club in Garden Grove right there on Chapman and Gilbert if you're interested. But put that on your calendar, June 23rd, for a fun time. That's all I got. Thanks.
Well, I just want to echo, we just wanted to say thank you to the police, all the police officers out there. Every day, they basically our protector and keep us safe. And as well as I thank you for all the city staff. The council retreat was success and very informations, and we know what challenges we're going to have and what achievement that we did in the past year. So just want to say thank you to all.
Thank you. Kim?
I have a couple things. I wanted to start out by saying recently I had the privilege of sitting down and having coffee with a mom that lives in my district that had some issues with parking and school parking and traffic and different things, and it was just a great discussion, and it kind of just made me realize there's a lot of issues all throughout the city. We each have our own specific ones that seem to kind of be important to our district, but at the end of the day, we have a lot of really passionate residents and people in this community and in this city that they love their neighborhoods, they love the community, they love Garden Grove, and they want to get more involved, and they want to be a part of the process to figure something out, find a solution. So I just kind of want to give my hats off to her. Her name is Claire, and just appreciated her time and her passion for her children and her neighborhood. And then I wanted to give an update on vector control. I don't know if anybody's been bit by mosquitoes lately, but apparently we have some crazy increased activity here in Orange County and in Garden Grove. So Vector is encouraging people to please continue to inspect and maintain your property and eliminate standing water. Again, stagnant water, even a tiny little amount, can breed mosquitoes, and we know we have mosquitoes in the city that carry West Nile virus, so we don't want to get that. They also can give your dogs and pets the heartworm disease, which is also very serious. So If you have standing water in your gutters, in your streets, or unmaintained swimming pools, you can call 714-971-2421 or go to ocvector.org to have them help you with those issues. And then, Mr. City Manager, I know that there was an update on the Huanglong being the citrus disease. I don't have the paper in front of me, so if you have anything to add to that, I don't have the information handy currently. But if you suspect your tree is infected or you think a neighbor's tree is, I'll just give the hotline number. It's 1-800-491-1899. Thank you.
I just would like to thank our officer for going the extra mile to help save life. Over the years, sitting here, I have heard and have seen many officers being presented for their courage and their effort to save other people's life. But tonight, I was very touched when I heard the chief talk about what they have done to save the life of 5 days old baby. It really touched my heart. And boy, if I thought I would be in the shoes of the parents, I would be so scared if for my kids, and I would be probably so happy when I see my kid life was saved. So I would like to express my appreciation to the officers, and also on that note, on the reverse, I was so thrilled to learn about the a gentleman over 100 years old, a baseball star that was shared with us by our Mayor Pro Tem Chris Beer, that it is a resident of West Garden Grove.
Yes.
He is a pro star, baseball pro star, and he has been our resident for a long time, and he reached 100 years plus old. And
He's reaching in July will be his birthday, so we're reaching out to him.
so he's reaching 100 years old now.
He can join us.
Cool. I really appreciate that you share that with us, Mayor Pro Tem. And thank you. And I look forward to congratulate him and present him something. Are you going to?
Well, we'll see if he can make it. The invitations is being extended to him and his family. So I actually heard about him from, I was at a neighborhood watch meeting this last Sunday, and we heard about him being one of the oldest living Major League Baseball players.
Wow.
From West Garden Grove. So you'll get the details. Hopefully you can line up, and I'll tease you with that. But he's a very interesting guy. There's a YouTube video on him, and he's very
still
well.
pitch?
I don't know. It's just like, we'll have to find out. Hopefully we can find that out. Thanks for that.
City Manager.
Let me just add to that. I was so impressed with the YouTube video. It was done by one of the LA TV stations. He's 100 years old, the oldest living Major League Baseball player. I sent that video out to several of my baseball aficionados around the country. The man played with Ted Williams. Wow. Satchel Paige. He met Babe Ruth. Wow. I mean, he played with Jackie Robinson, and he started a foundation to help retired baseball players that have fallen on hard times to get them back on their feet. And the guy's 100 years old. He looks like he's about 80, and his wife looks like she's about 60. And they're just an amazing couple. He's sharp as a tack. Really, really impressive. It'd be great if we could get him here.
Reach out to him.
His name is Chuck.
Chuck Stevens.
Chuck Stevens.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, council member, just one item. On Monday and Tuesday, May 21st and 22nd, is the International Council of Shopping Centers. Mayor Jones, Mayor Pro Tem Beard, and Councilmember Kloppenstein were the three people that indicated they were interested in going this year. So at the next council meeting, it's in Las Vegas, but it's out of state. So at the next meeting, we'll have an ordinance that you'll have to approve for their travel to that. So we'll have that at the next meeting. So that's all I have.
Thank you. I'm going to close the meeting in memory of someone. I just want to comment. Thanks for sharing your story of your meeting with Claire. Was it Claire? Yeah. Just because it's cute, but it's like a reminder, lest we forget what we're here for, right? We're honored to be here as elected officials, elected by the residents of the city
Really
to
cool people in this
to
city.
serve their. We've got a ton of really cool
We
people.
really-
So
really do.
it's like lest we get caught up with all these other things that come across our desk, and I mean, we get it's like drinking out of a fire hose, right? I mean, we get just a whole lot of stimulus on a daily basis. But at core, we're here to serve Claire. We're here to serve the interests of the residents of Garden Grove, and I'm very proud at the work this council is doing. I think we've got a great group, a very cohesive group. We communicate well together. We're respectful of each other, and everyone's heart is in the right place to serve this city and to make this city a better place to be in the future. So just want to thank all of you for your efforts. We're going to adjourn tonight in memory of Keon Nelson. Keon worked as a sewer maintenance worker for the city since 2011 and recently lost his battle with cancer at 36 years old. Keon was moving forward and had achieved so much in his short life. His achievements included his service in the Navy on an aircraft carrier, and in 2016 he received a master's degree in business administration. He's got an MBA. He was a family man who dedicated his free time to coach his son's baseball and football teams. He loved sports and tolerated his coworkers for giving him a hard time for being a Buffalo Bills fan. He will be missed by everyone who worked with him and will be remembered for his warmth and his infectious smile. Keon leaves behind his wife of 11 years, Shawani, and Keon Jr., age 8, Jaron, age 7, Malia, age 4, and baby Sean. So with that, we will sadly close our meeting. Thank you. We're adjourned.